further our discussion in terms of logo. So ayan, I hope you're all excited. I hope you're all pumped because I am, di ba? Very interesting yung topic natin for this morning. So welcome to our webinar. Let's get things started. So to get us running and started, I would like to pass the virtual spotlight to our very dynamic and energetic Miss Jill Palarca, the current president of the Media Educators of Mindanao. Ma'am Jill, good morning.
Good morning. But before that, let's have a group photo muna. Okay.
Oh, okay, yes, I
Yeah.
forgot. Okay.
Okay.
Sige,
Group photo before and
photo
after. Yan ang
tayo.
uso ngayon.
Oo nga po pala. Before that, I would like to remind everyone nga pala to please follow the naming convention sent in our chat box. So your first name or your name, then slash your organization, the name of your organization, and please change your background into the virtual background sent to your email. And I think, I don't know, probably we could also send it in our chat box here. Okay, so you may download this and change this. Change it to this virtual background so that we can have our group photo. So please don't be shy to turn on your camera. And I think, Sir Mark, are you going to take the screenshot, right?
Yes, Sir McCoy.
Okay, sige. Just cue us in case.
All right. Kindly turn on your cameras in 3, 2, 1. All right, next window. All right. 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you.
Okay, sige. Before I pass the floor to Ma'am Jill, just a few reminders. We're encouraging everyone if you could leave your camera on if your data or internet allows it para makita naman namin kayo, 'di ba? So we would feel na we're not alone in this webinar. Also at the same time, please keep your microphones muted as to not disturb the flow of the discussion of our speakers. If you have questions, you may send them in our chat box, and then we're going to entertain them after the speakers gave their lectures, because we're going to have an open forum at the end of our webinar. So without further ado, I would like to pass again the floor to Ma'am Jill. Ma'am Jill?
Thank you, Sir Mark, for that very warm welcome. And people are still coming into the Zoom, but we will begin so that we will maximize the time, no? Kasi sobrang igsi ng ating time right now. But I hope that we can, get as much learning. Okay, so can you see my screen? Is there anything blocking it? Wala naman. All right, good. Okay, so before giving you a context of what this webinar is all about, I'd like to give a little introduction of who we are. Okay, for those who are joining us for the first time, some of you are already members from who already registered previously, no, past months, and have been joining us. Okay, thank you for those who are actively always joining mga webinars ng MEM. And then meron tayong mga newcomers, no, kaka-register lang sa MEM. And through this webinar, so who are we, no? Just to give you an idea of who Media Educators of Mindanao is. So we are a Mindanao-based nonprofit organization of media and communication teachers and practitioners advocating to transform Mindanao through media education. So that's our main goal. So our vision, we are a growth-centered organization. So that's why we are always having these learning opportunities, because we're looking into really growing more media or media literate Mindanaoans, and not just only Mindanaoans, no, even people from Luzon and Visayas. Okay, so hence we have this capacity or capability development programs. Our mission, no, we want to enhance the capacity, as I've said, and then we also want to enrich the media experience of consumers and lifelong learners. So soon we will be producing content also on our platforms. And we also engage in meaningful collaboration. So we've, since January of this year, we've partnered with so many esteemed media companies and other NGOs, no, who share our advocacy, because we believe, no, that in partnerships we can achieve more, and we can really hit our goal, no, to reach the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. So, diba? So malapit-lapit na yun. So hopefully we have made or added to change, no, so that we can make a difference. And of course, we want to embody the values and principles of conflict sensitive media. So what is that all about? I'll explain a little bit later. So our stakeholders, primarily because it's in our name, media educators. And of course, no, when we train media educators, may impact yan sa learners natin. But more than that, especially this year, no, we're also looking into media creators. And when we say media creators, every one of us now are media creators, right? Sa Facebook nyo nga, di ba, nakalagay, digital creator kayo. And at the age of when ABS-CBN is not already a network, di ba? They already look at or consider themselves as just content creator. Imagine an institution like ABS-CBN, ka-level na lang natin ngayon, sa YouTube na lang sila. Diba? So we are equally as powerful as this network. So, you know, we see the power of media educators transforming students in the classroom, but you, as creators on social media, you are also educating your consumers. So it's very important that we reach out to these stakeholders as well. So who are the media educators? Primarily, these are, of course, if you're a subject teacher of media and education, media and communication subjects in college or in senior high school, or other related subjects such as social studies or IT, mga ganyan. Or if you're a club moderator, if you're in campus, if you're in your school paper. And we're also looking to librarians. So we've had a couple of librarians already in our membership. But yes, we are looking into school librarians and museum creators to be part of our growing community. And who are the media creators? No? So all of us are media creators. So we're looking at digital content creators, whether you are a formal or doing this for monetary purposes, like you're really an influencer, or you're just a regular individual creating content. Because every time you post something on your Facebook, even if you don't consider yourself as an influencer, you are already influencing. Okay, so lahat tayo influencers in generally speaking. And then we're also engaging our legacy media professionals, those who are formally employed, no, in media companies, newspapers. So we have a handful of media practitioners also in our membership community. And we have also added information officers, no, mostly from Mindanao. Okay, so we haven't invited yet, or we haven't had members from Luzon, Visayas who are information officers, but probably soon. But mostly we are focusing on inviting information officers coming from Mindanao, no, because they're very important in creating or in providing information that is factual and free from any propaganda, di ba? So we want them to be conflict sensitive and to be promoters of peace as well. So, and of course, no, and in addition to our growing members are the students. So, in this particular webinar, ang dami nating estudyante. No? So, actually, the top 3 participants right now are, we have college teachers, and then we have government employees, no, particularly information officers, and then we have students, mostly from campus school papers. Okay. So with that, what is the main advocacy of MEM? So again, like I mentioned earlier, we are in the business of transforming Mindanao through media education. And we see 2 very important things that we need to look at. Okay, very important thing is disinformation, no? Disinformation about and from Mindanao. So alam naman natin, no? Mindanao has been a victim of a lot of misconceptions, okay? And because this has been perpetuated on mainstream media. And so as media educators of Mindanao, we want to help change that, no? Change that image of what is Mindanao. Is it really all about war and everything? No, of course, it's not all about that. So we want to change that. And of course, we also want to address that disinformation coming from the region, especially during nung panahon ng election, di ba? Ang daming disinformation coming from Mindanao. And ang solution dyan is media education. And when we're looking at media education, it's not only for communication majors anymore, no? Hindi na lang to pang college. And media education is, for everybody. It's for every Filipino citizen. Because every Filipino citizen must be media literate. Because media literacy is a human right and a civic responsibility. So MIL is a subject in senior high school right now, but we believe MIL should be taught to everybody from bata to matanda, no? So if MIL means you're taking off the blindfolds off, no? Taking the blindfolds off and seeing reality, no, as it is, then by putting on CSJ or conflict sensitive journalism, which is the heart and soul of MEM, it means we're not just taking off blindfolds, but we're putting on X-ray goggles to really see and analyze where the problem is coming from. Okay, so yes, that's the heart of men, conflict sensitive journalism. So it is a subject right now in college here in Mindanao, in particular in 5 schools, and we wish to bring this subject into more schools in Mindanao and later on possibly in Visayas and Luzon. But this is not only for journalism students, okay? So CSJ is a lens. It's a way of seeing things, no? Conflict sensitivity is a way to analyze things. So whenever we see something online, we always think, what's the real cause of this issue, okay? And who are the actors here, no? So because we have to stay away from the notion of there's always a bad guy and a good guy, no? So conflict sensitive journalism wishes to eradicate that mindset na parating binary, okay? So there are more actors in an issue and we have to look at each and everyone's role, okay, into the problem so that we can really achieve peace and come up with better solutions or more sustainable and conflict sensitive solutions. Okay. So that's what we're really here for. So if you look at this, graphic here, no, ma'am, if you look at it, if we are an atom, okay. So in the core, no, we take care of our K-12 teachers because as they're teaching media and information literacy, a lot of them are actually not trained to teach media education. No? So some of them have degrees in English or sometimes in other subjects, and then they're being asked to teach MIL. So MEM is here to help you, have the capability to teach media literacy topics. And helping us do that and also learning in the process are the media education teachers in college and of course our media practitioners who help bridge the gap. Kasi there's a big gap between what you learn in school and what is really being taught, what is being done, okay, in the actual field, di ba? So, yung mga graduate na dito na-realize yun na parang iba yung turo ng teacher sa nangyayari sa real life. Yes, because most of the time, many teachers have more years in teaching than in actual practice. So, we here at MEM recognize that challenge. So we're here to bridge that gap and bring everyone together. And so to helping us do this, we have our knowledge partners and we also have our advocacy partners. As I've mentioned earlier, we partner with a lot of NGOs too. So, okay, so we have so many activities here and we categorize it in 3 areas. So we have meet. This is our MEM enrichment and entertainment and team building session. This webinar that you're joining is under meets, meaning these are events that are very exclusive to members of MEM. And we have open events wherein these are events that are partners with, for example, with other media companies like Rappler or Facts First PH or Mindanao Times or kung sino pa, no? And these are mostly open to everybody. Okay? And not mostly, these are open to everybody. And then we do a lot of mentorship. So that's what we really do here in MEM. We want to take care of you. If you really want to, develop yourself as a, really very relevant and responsive media educator. So when you say responsive, whatever's happening right now in the realm of media and society, you respond to it. No, you do not enclose yourself in the classroom and be just focus on the textbook that you're using, because most of the time the textbook that you're using may be outdated already. Every day there are new theories and there are new principles and there are new issues that we need to discuss in the realm of media and information. All right. So here we nurture the culture of teachers, teaching teachers, and we want to encourage or nurture the ecosystem of sharing. And that's why we're here. And that's why we are here right now in of logos and slogans, unpacking the art, science, and industry practice of branding and graphic design. Okay, so ito yung nagsimula, no? The discussion of these two most recent controversial logo and slogan. Okay, alam niyo na yan, no? It's been all over social media. Bakit ganyan yung slogan? Kulang daw ng kama para mas maging heartwarming. And then yung pagcore, parang ano ba yan, no? What does that mean, no? Uso pa ba talaga ang gradient? Yung mga ganyan mga questions ang pwedeng sagutin ng mga speakers natin, no? Okay, and then, but prior to that, there have been so many issues as well, no? Yung SEA Games logo was also bashed online. Yung Pilipinas kay Ganda was also bashed online. Actually, bashing of logos is not very specific to the Philippines. All over the world, especially in America, no? Magaling din sila mag-bash ng mga logos. Okay, doon. So, this is not unique to the mindset of Filipinos, no? Lahat. So, I guess people really have this affinity towards logos, no? Parang we're very, parang, tawag ito, involved. Okay, we're very involved in this topic. And this is not only for Filipinos. So, this is a very good topic to talk about, really. Eto, sabi ko, uso yung logos, kahapon lang, no? May bagong logo na naman na ni-release, di ba? Si Philippine National Games. I just added that up. I really laughed at this picture when I saw this on social media, courtesy of Now You Know. Um, palamang iniisip niya, bagong logo na naman. Parang familiar colors, no? Magko-comment ba ako? Okay. And then, another logo was revealed in the same event. No comment na lang siya. Okay. Bakit kaya siya no comment na lang, no? So, is this logo modern? Is this style outdated? There's so many questions, different points of view, no, that could really clash. Okay, so the main questions that came to our mind when we were, in the middle of discussing all of these topics, no, what really makes a good logo, diba? And why should we change the logo? Okay, so if it's a brand, if it's something that should identify an entity, should we always change it or kailan ba talaga nag-change? So those are really good questions that we hope to be answered today. And if you watch that video, no, sabi ni Michael Birut doon, di ba? It's not, logos by themselves are overrated, okay? So they're just symbols and it's not the splash. So the revelation of the logo doesn't really mean anything, sabi ni Michael Birut, no? But it's how the logo can live on through the years and build an identity for itself, no? So it's not the splash you make when you hit the water. It's how long you keep your head above water. That's what he said in that very wonderful, in that short but very insightful video by Vox. So sabi ninyo, okay, 65 responses said, should everyone understand the art and science of basic graphic design? This was asked in your registration form. Most of you said yes, and I thank you. Now you said yes, so because yes, this is really important. Okay, why do we need to understand graphic design? We live in a visual media saturated world. Visuals are everywhere, so therefore kailangan natin intindihan what these symbols and signs are all about. And isa pa, because we all participate in public sphere discussions, so pag magko-comment ka, magbabash ka, you should know, okay, where your criticism is coming from. Di ba? So, hindi na yung pataka, no? So, Bisaya pa, pataka lang kag-comment niya. Okay. So, and then of course, we also want to appreciate the work behind the creatives, the graphic designers, and we'll be touching a little bit about slogan writing and copywriters. I feel strongly for this because before becoming a teacher, I was a copywriter for many years in ad agencies also and in events. So writing is not easy, okay? Coming up with a slogan, hindi yan siya, but the best ones can really come up with the best line in a snap. But that takes years of experience, okay? This topic is actually part of the MIL curriculum. But the question is, are we teaching it correctly? No? So if you're a senior high school teacher who's here in the Zoom room right now, this is a question for you. So what can we expect from this webinar? We're going to talk about the art side of it, the science part of it, no, the principles, the technical part of it, sabi nga ni Sir Marco, and our speakers are going to share their industry experience. They're very experienced. No? We're so lucky to have them this morning. But this is just scratching the surface, ha? So let's manage our expectations. We only have until 11:30. Okay? So um, hindi tayo kulang to, I know. So I hope that we can have more of this. So if you're going to be part of MEM, send in your ideas and please join us in our next activities that, have these topics. So, all right, let me introduce our first speaker, okay? So our first speaker graduated with a degree of BS in Computer Science from the University of the Philippines, Visayas. But art has always been his passion. During his time at the Philippine Science High School, Western Visayas, he was recognized with special honors for winning a national design competition. He started his career as a senior UX and UI designer, user experience and user interface designer, 3D asset creator, at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, and then went on to head his own studio that specializes in logo and brand identity creation, user experience and user interface design, 3D asset design and creation, traditional and digital illustration work. His clients span from all over the globe, the Philippines, US, Australia, New Zealand, and China. And his passion and experience have helped him garner national and international awards from various design competitions. Okay, he has also illustrated children's books and is currently involved in several startups, as well as the lead video game, 3D artist, and user interface designer in one. Oh, game reveal naman daw dyan. Ano daw yung game na yun? Okay, recently he made the rounds on social media when he created his own version of the controversial Pagcor logo. Mev is indeed very honored that he is gracing us today, all the way from Iloilo. Please give your virtual cheers to Mr. Christopher Rouge Panes. Sir?
Wow, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Miss Jill. First of all, I'd like to thank Media Educators of Mindanao for having me. And it's so heartwarming to see a lot of handsome and beautiful faces today. So that goes to show how much branding is of utmost importance to everyone. As Miss Jill has mentioned, we live in a media saturated world. It's surprising to know that it only takes seconds for the attention span of an average person right now. So you have to be identifiable, quickly identifiable in terms of your brand. All right, so let me share my screen. Okay. Let me know if you can see it. Okay, all good? Can everybody see my screen? Okay.
Yes, we can.
All right, okay. So, of logos and slogans. So to set expectations, I'm going to talk about mostly the industry practice that I'm doing right now in terms of branding. So branding is just a subset of what I do. My main specialty is UX and UI design. And I've seen also in most of the inputs, you guys are interested in graphic design, which we can also discuss, especially in the question and answer part later on. Okay. All right, so my name is Christopher Panes, but my nickname is actually Rouge. So that's a different story. Why my nickname is so far from my real name. But basically, I'm an artist, I'm a designer, and I'm a dad. So as Ms. Jill has mentioned, I'm a BS Computer Science graduate, as you can see. When you say computer science, it's a very much different field, right? From design, branding, and advertising, and graphic design. But my heart is in art primarily. So as you can see, I have here my painting with me. So that's made using unipins, ball pens. So I really love art. And I do love a lot of things like video games, music, biking, woodworking, and stuff like that. I show this because all of these contribute to who I am and how I design things. And that's what I want to impart to you as well. So all these little things that you do, all the experiences that you gain in whatever field you are, can contribute if ever you want to take on that path on graphic design. Right? So for my work experience, I started from HP. As you can see, it's a very technical company. So I started from HP. And most of the time when I say that I come from HP, people ask me about their printer problems. But that is not the case. Because in HP, I do software, I do design. So that's where I started. And then HP became DXC technology. So continuously becoming, refining my skills in UX, UI, and design. And then I went to WRZC for around a year. And then currently, I guess I'm doing what most want, working from home, doing illustrations, logo design, and everything that Miss Jill has mentioned. So having international clients and staying here in Iloilo is such a godsend, having time for my family. So I guess I want to inspire you as well if you want to start this journey. So anybody can do it. If you follow the process and if you follow let's say, for example, there is no silver bullet, don't get me wrong. There is no definite process, but I guess there are some steps that you can take to start. All right, so just to mention, when I worked in HP and DXC, I worked with companies such as Frog Design, Disney, and if you play Magic Cards, Wizards of the Coast. So I've worked with all those companies as well. So that contributed to the experience. Okay, so I do a lot of traditional art. Again, I love art. So it bleeds into the design that I have, into the design. So I love painting, oil, acrylic stuff, even painting on sneakers, sculpting. Yeah, and also doing illustrations. Right. I love 3D work as well, if those who are interested in doing 3D. So I have a couple of tips too. So we'll be releasing our game later on, as Miss Jill has mentioned. So yeah. Okay, now on to the part that you're awaiting the most. So I here have a couple of branding works that I've done. I've done work for ZMG Asia, some education-based companies as well, such as LIAB, some NGOs such as Angat Bayi, empowering women, our personal art gallery for the family. I did some for my alma mater, Pisay, and another education-based company, Bihasa as well. So a few of my international logos are the Bay Area photo. So that's in San Francisco. And of course, one of my greatest clients on the lower right is for my wife, for her photography brand. But yeah, here are a sample of some of my logos. Okay, so to be honest, this is why we're here, right? So I was invited here because of the PAGCOR logo, and we all have our questions. And I'm very, very much excited to hear your questions. Should this be rebranded? Should this be changed? Is this worth 3 million pesos? And stuff like that. So we'll answer that later on in the question and answer part. But I wanted to show you that I did a redesign because I was interested in it. I was interested in the rationale, how I would approach it separately. So I respect the work that has been done by the designer. He has his own thoughts and methods as to why he did that. But in this case, I wanted to show also in my own methodology how I could redesign it, how I had my own rationale, and how, you know, let's say, for example, how we could make expandable elements out of it. Ms. Jill has mentioned a couple of things earlier, right? What makes a good logo? I was surprised actually to see the new logos that Ms. Jill has shared this morning. I wasn't able to see that yesterday. The new logos that the government had released. One thing that's interesting is that there's this talk about a system of logos. Just came to my mind when I saw that the government should have created a system of homogeneous logos, right? It could have been expandable, let's say, for example, across the different departments, but I'm not sure about their approach. I think they're doing it individually just for the sake of rebranding. Okay, so on to the nitty-gritty. How do I design logos? I'll show you the overview, the process. So in this case, we don't have much time, but I'll show you the high level, and perhaps we can drill down into the different bits of it by the end or by the Q&A aspect of it. So everybody okay? Can I see a thumbs up? This is just the strangest things about, you know, talking online. I can't see some, I can't feel you, I can't hear you. So the energy is there, but it's just strange just to see people through screens. I'm still not used to it after all these years. So, all right. So, okay. So let's proceed. So what I do as a UX and UI designer as my main thing is that I have this design thinking process. I mentioned earlier, there is no silver bullet. Clients will approach you differently. So for example, so this is the industry practice side of it. They might say that, hey, I want a logo. Can you give it to me in 3 days? Right? Hey, I want a logo. Can you give it to me in 1 week? But what I do try to do is I try to guide them through the process. I don't reinforce to them, but I try to guide them. So let's say, for example, we get what they need, and then we get the actual requirements, right? So this is the design thinking process. First, we empathize, we get into their shoes, we define the requirements, we ideate, which is, let's say, the creation of the logo itself. We prototype, We keep on ideating, we keep on creating until, let's say, for example, we have some samples to show them, and then we test. So in this case, when we're talking about logos and branding, when we test, we present to them, we show them if it works or not, and stuff like that. So this may be inclined towards UX, UI design, graphic design, but this can also apply to logos in some way. Right? So first, we empathize and then we define. So in whatever you do, I think that is one of the most essential things to do. Whatever your task is, you get into the shoes of your client, right? You set aside your own assumptions. You don't go into things, have preconceived notions. I mean, you can, having questions prepared and stuff like that. But you have, when the client talks to you, you get into their shoes. You listen to them. That's the most important thing. You have discovery sessions, you have meetings, and then you take a ton of notes. So I'm pretty sure, I guess most, as I've seen in the statistics, most of the students here are from Journ. What I would advise is, for me, the old school paper and pen stuff still works. Whenever I listen to something and then I translate it directly to writing it, I remember it. So and then you can go back to the pages quickly. You can do digital, but I guess nothing beats the old school pen and paper. So as a side note, if you like Eminem, let's say rap music, he is known to write all his lyrics and he write his rhymes in his notebook. So he can go back and forth different verses and stuff like that. So yeah, nothing beats old school. And then the third one is you gain insight about the needs of the client. So insight you get from the listening, from the discovery sessions, and then you get an accurate and deep understanding. So this is very, very important because you really have to capture what the client needs, what the client wants. And you also have to take note that sometimes the client does not know what he needs, or sometimes what he wants is a bit vague. So that's why you have to listen, or you have to empathize. All right? So after you do that, you define. You take all their notes, you take all the information that you have gathered. Let's say, for example, if you have interviewed a couple of people, you gather them together. You analyze observations and information gathered. So this is very, very much high level, but it shows that based from the information you got, the raw data, you have to put them together and get, let's say, for example, generate the requirements there. What are your goals? You are going to make a branding, a logo, something like this that speaks to this audience, that, let's say, for example, that conveys this, the heart of the brand. So that's something that you have to do. You have to define it. And sometimes you have to have the clients check. Let's say, for example, did I get the requirements right? Did I get your goals correct? Did I get the mission and the vision correct? So as you can see, if you look at it, if you step back and look at it at a high level, the creation process is actually a very small part towards the middle end area. A very big area of, or a very big part of designing something or creating branding is actually the empathy part, or let's say, for example, understanding what your client needs. Okay, everybody still okay? All good? Okay. All right. So always remember a couple of things when you are designing logos. So the logo should embody the mission, the vision, what the company, the individual, or the organization that the logo stands for. It should represent the brand. So again, going back to understanding. So the logo should be readable anywhere and in whatever size. It should also work well in color and black and white. So when I create my samples, it also has that, the monochromatic or even the pure black and white, because you never know where it might be used, right? So it may be used in embroidery. Let's say, for example, in the medical field, it can be used as scrubs, in the scrubs, or it can be used in the small instruments that you use. Let's say, for example, in carpentry, a hammer or a wrench, right? If you see a wrench, you see the Stanley brand or Milwaukee brand or DeWalt brand. It's very much clear in whatever size it is. And also, if you look at the very, very famous Nike swoosh, it stands anywhere, no matter how small, even if it's in a piece of jewelry, in a ring, or in whatnot, so it can be understood. And you know that it's Nike or even Apple. So the element should be extendable for creative use. For example, the 3 stripes in the Adidas logos are usually used on the full length of their trackpads. So even if past that logo mark or whatever that represents the brand, let's say those complementary elements, as I call them when I give them to clients, it expands, and then you know that it is part of that brand. Adidas is a very good example, right? All those 3 stripes, they have all these track suits, track shirts, and all the brandings. Whenever you see those 3 stripes, you know it's Adidas. So even if it's not really, it is a subset of the main brand, you can quickly identify the brand. And it should give the viewer the feeling that the brand wants to convey, right? So if it's something like a luxury brand or an elegant brand, it shouldn't be cheap. It should have that weight of luxury. So let's say, for example, like Apple, for example, if you see it, you want it. It's well, not everybody wants it, but most of the people want it. You want the product because it just works. It's something really nice, or especially like Rolls-Royce, for example. It's a very elegant brand. If you see it, you know it's luxurious. So other than, let's say, for example, that simple mark, it should have that emotion that you evoke on the viewer. Let's say, for example, for the viewer to know the feel of that brand. Okay. Last but not the least, this is a very important part, especially when you're doing cultural, let's say, for example, cross-cultural designs or even international designs. Always check for cultural or social no-nos. If you're to create a brand, for example, with hand gestures, and then it was going to be published or created in Italy, for example, there are a couple of hand gestures you might want to avoid, right? So same as other symbolism, such as religious symbols, does it affect something somewhere there, especially if you want the brand to go international? Does it affect this country, their beliefs and stuff like that? So that's one thing that you have to look out for, I guess, especially on the first part of your design process when you're implementing something. So I know these things are sort of intertwined, and it should be at the back of your mind, especially when starting everything. So that's why this first part of analyzing everything, of analyzing the requirements, and having the empathy part is very important, because once you start, right, exerting effort and then drawing or getting into the drawing board, then that's when it's difficult to reverse things if you already created a lot of concepts and stuff like that without putting these into consideration. Right? Okay, everybody okay so far? Good? Okay, so on to the drawing board, right? So you have all your requirements, you have all your goals, you have all the notes that you have for your clients. You have a list of values, you have the list of characteristics that you have. So if it's time to implement, it's around this part of the design thinking process. So you have the ideate and the prototyping. Right. So one, determine the type. There are a couple of types of logo, and I think the introductory video from Mr. Beirut has also discussed this. So you have a couple of things. You have to determine, will the brand initials or name itself, or the name represent itself in the logo? So one is it a letter mark, the letters of the logo, or is it a word mark, like say, for example, like Google or Facebook? It's good. It's quickly identifiable. You know the name of the company. And in times, let's say like Google, it still works even in the smallest of sizes. So this is something that you want to do. Or will it be represented by an icon? So as you know, these iconic things, Apple, Target, but unfortunately, Twitter has rebranded itself, right? So it's now known as X, which is now a letter mark. Now, an interesting thing about Twitter is that it works, right? Like if you hear birds tweet, that's why they named also the messages that the users send out as tweets. But it's interesting when they rebranded to X. Now, what would it be known? Will you send out an X? Have you received, you know, it's just strange, right? The transition to that aspect of it. So yeah, those are the things that you have to consider too. Or is it an abstract logo mark? So something that represents the brand, not entirely an icon that directly talks about it, but something abstract, like for example, the swoosh, right? It has so many, it has evolved so much from the check that Carolyn has created for $35, and then now it's the swoosh. It shows speed. Some even say that it's the wings of the goddess of victory, Nike. So it shows speed. Even Pepsi is sort of an interesting case as well. It is very mysterious. It talks about it. Sometimes it says that it's the globe, talks about the different hemispheres and whatnot, and Adidas too. So I've read that Adidas would means that it's the different obstacles or the different difficulties that you can scale, or But basically, this came from the sides of the shoes, like the reinforcement, right, of Adidas when it was first created. So I think symbols are one of the things that are at the middle, the sweet spot as well. It doesn't really rely on iconography that might be common in some aspects that you might see in other logos. But if you see this and it's very unique, that's where you see that your brand works. It's very effective in the recall and, let's say, for example, creating something unique for your brand. Or will it be represented by a mascot? So if you see this, if you see Pringles, if you see the Kool-Aid Man, or if you see Colonel Sanders, you know what it is, right? So with those types in mind, no, sorry, there's one more, an emblem. So you have something more luxurious in that sense. Let's say Harley or Porsche, or let's say, for example, Starbucks. But I've seen some versions of Starbucks where it's just the iconography or the abstract logo type. But in any case, the original logo was an emblem. So once you have that in mind, let's say, for example, what you want it to look like, what I would really recommend is that you sketch and sketch and sketch. I know some designers who, when they get something, they go directly into their tools, they go directly into Illustrator and stuff like that, or Photoshop, and then they create things. One thing is that when you sketch, no matter how rough it is, no matter how, let's say, for example, if you consider yourself even not good in drawing, your idea translation is still direct from your mind to your hand. If you do it directly in digital forms, let's say you create shapes directly, there is some limitation to it. You might be limited by the skill that you have in the software. You might be limited in the software. You might be limited as to how it is rendered by the software. You have to sketch. It's very different once you have that. And also, do take note that however rough your sketch is, keep in mind that when you try implementing it, it will get better. So if you see something that you think is not good enough, just leave it there. As I mentioned, right, keep a notebook, put it there in the earlier pages, then just keep on going. Keep on creating iterations, keep on sketching, keep on moving forward. And then if you see something, or if you create a concept that might click with the previous concept, go back to the previous page. So that's when I mentioned the return to a previous concept is easier when you're drawing or when you have that notebook, right? Yeah, so always bring a physical notebook with you always. Every idea is worth sketching, and don't worry about the roughness. So I'll just go back one slide. This LIAB logo is for an education-based company as well. So it's a flame that's also represented by the letter L. And one thing that's very notable during this part is that I was actually creating this when I was taking care of a family member in the hospital. So it was so while I was just having downtime there, let's say sitting around, I was able to do this. All the concepts came out. I didn't forget. I had time to draw it and I had time to create it. So as you draw also, you keep notes or annotations beside your logo. So does it should it represent this letter? Does it represent this element? Check the silhouette and stuff like that. So a couple of notes for yourself so that you won't forget and stuff like that. Right, so keep it clean. So keep it clean would be during the implementation. So as you saw the sketch earlier, this is actually what it rendered. So this was the output. When I say keep it clean, one thing is that this also makes a good logo. Make sure that there are no extraneous elements, right? There are no elements that are not needed. If you make something, let's say digital, and then you have a lot of circles around, that doesn't make sense. It makes the logo heavy. It makes it difficult to translate to different media and stuff like that. So other things or other ways to keep it clean is that you use straight lines, clean lines. The composition is great. And in the succeeding pages, I'll show you some of the tools that they use, that we designers use actually to create this. So that's one. So this part, make sure that there are no extraneous elements. They all mean something. Right? So other ways that designers do it, they use circles. So sometimes these circles are derived from the golden ratio. So they have that golden ratio and then they make the sizes out of it. So the Twitter bird is an example. It is composed out of circles that are placed together. Then those intersections or unions or some areas of the shape create the shape of the bird. So that's why there's an elegance there. There's sort of an elegance there and cleanliness there. So that's also one thing, clean lines. And another thing that you might see in other logos are symmetries. Symmetries also make a good logo. It's clean. People are always drawn towards symmetries as long as it's cleanly made and nicely made. So that's a good baseline, or that's a good foundation as well. So here's another example. We have the Apple logo made out of circles and the different intersections or the different combination of shapes within those circles as well. Right, some grids. Grids are also a good tool. So this is an example of the Dropbox logos. The Dropbox logo created out of grids. But what I want to say is that, especially for those designers starting out, these are nice tools for the refinement aspect of the logo. When you're creating it, when you're drawing it, forget about all this. Because as I mentioned, when you're creating something, I do not want you to be limited. I do not want to be limited. Let's say if I want to draw something, I want to draw it. If it doesn't follow the rules, it doesn't matter. If my logo works and it doesn't follow the rules, it doesn't matter. So that's what I want to impart as well. There are no definite set of rules. There is no silver bullet, right? As we go along, as the trade or as the craft evolves, we have all these tools. But ultimately, what would work is a good logo, right? So you'd know that it's identifiable, you'd know the values of the company, the mission, the vision, or how the feeling that it evokes from you. So don't let this limit you, right? So always start from sketching, no matter how rough it is. So I mentioned the circles earlier, right? So golden ratio circles are used. So you start from the smallest one, then you multiply it by the golden ratio, which is 1.618. Then you have the next size of the circle, and then so forth. So some of the designers, let's say, for example, they have iconography or they have the logo fitting inside the circle. Right? So this is an example. You have this logo or you have this icon within that shape. So it does help. There are a lot of elements in nature. Let's say, for example, the growth patterns of different flowers and stuff like that that follow the golden ratio. So there is some sort of innate beauty in that process. So this is one tool that you can use as well. Right. So another thing is that so earlier we were talking about the iconography part of it, right? So the image and then what represents it, the graphical part of it, the process. But again, one important part of it is the typography. So there are many fonts, right? So if you want to browse, let's say, for example, Google fonts, Behance fonts, you can look for fonts that are serif, that have these tails or sort of markers at the end of them. You have sans serif, which is the modern fonts that we have. We have display ones optimized for big displays, handwriting fonts, and so forth. One thing that you have to do when you're selecting a font is that it has to be timeless. It can't be something like out of a trend. It can be something like, I don't want to bash on Comic Sans, for example, or something like a very stylized font. But you have to know that a timeless logo will have a classic font to it. Let's say it's readable. Again, if you go back to the concepts, no matter what size, no matter how small it is or in what product you place it, it is readable, right? So if you look at some of the samples, right? This was the old sample of Google. This was the old font of Google. And you look at its evolution. It has ended in a very clean sans serif font. There was also a version of Google where they had a magnifying glass as a letter O. But in that sense, they veered away from it because they didn't want to be just confined in that search box or in that search engine aspect of it. And if you look at Facebook as well, very subtle. But the use of their clearer fonts, let's say, for example, in terms of readability, in terms of accessibility. Then again, that leads into the UX and UI aspect of it. But do you see how important typography is? Okay, some even have this hidden. I know you might have seen some of this. The way that they position fonts and the way that they structure it, even if it's purely just text, there are some hidden symbols like FedEx, right? You see that hidden arrow between E and X, which was the precision, the speed of it. Or even playing around with a combination of, let's say, a graphic like Amazon. So they offer the products, they offer a ton of products from A to Z, And then that also represents, let's say, for example, the customer satisfaction from beginning to end. So 7-Eleven is also an interesting use case, right? If you look at all the fonts, only the letter N is a lowercase font. Again, there's no rule regarding that. Well, legend has it that that letter N was made a lowercase because it was seen as too harsh if it was all caps. So it was suggested that that one is a bit playful, like in a lowercase, as a lowercase letter N. Or even DC Comics. This is one of my. I really like this one because DC Comics is a comic book, right? So you turn the page, the stories go on. It's D and C combined together, where D is peeling off from the C. So other than the page turner, it shows as a reveal of the next page. It also shows the unmasking of the superheroes in that sense. So in this case, all of these heavily rely on typography as something for the branding. Yeah. And now you see how important this typography is, or selecting a great font is. Okay, everybody okay so far? Good, good. Okay, great. Okay, so this is one of the examples that I had, so I wanted to share as well. When I was creating this logo for Liab, the sketches that I showed earlier until the implementation, we were really trying to understand, or we were choosing what typography we were going to use. Eventually, we went with the sans serif one on the left-hand side, but we were also exploring the roughness of it. So it's like being playful, the younger version of it, my handwriting in this case, and then having that Liab in the handwriting font. And as you see, the graphical element also followed it as well. We made it a bit rougher. We showed how raw the passion is in learning and stuff like that. So in this case, we wanted to reach a wider audience. Let's say we wanted to give it a more polished feel. So we went with the sans serif aspect. We went with the sans serif font on the left. Okay. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that there was this golden ratio, right? So just to give you an idea, this can also be used in different hierarchies. So for example, you have this title, you have the subtitle. I use this a lot in my UX and UI design. So if you have the multiple headers, you can have that golden ratio 1.618 as a multiplier to show the different levels. So especially for developers, you have H5, H4, H3, H2, H1, and HTML. Or when you're doing your sites, your blogs, or your news sites, right? There's this elegance as well if they had this specific hierarchy. So it's not just it's a weird combination of different scales in terms of the font size. So the golden ratio can help in that hierarchy as well. And if you go to typescale.com, so sharing that tool, you can explore the different kinds of scale across the different header types or the different header sizes. Okay. So one thing that I do when I'm creating a logo is that the element should be fully editable. Now, in this case, I create the elements in vector, which means they are calculated by shape. So the program does calculations to display that shape, which in turn makes them scalable to any size. As I mentioned, right, going back to that concept earlier, it has to be scalable to any size without losing fidelity, let's say without losing the resolution. So when I create something, it's in vector. Not in Photoshop. Most of the there are some designers who do Photoshop directly, but again, you'll face problems later on when you have that scalability thing or when you adapt it to something. So in this case, I start off with after I do the sketches, I scan them or I take a picture of them and place them in Adobe Illustrator. Then I trace over them and create the elements on top of it. Right. So again, no matter how rough that sketch is, the tool can help you at the end, refine what you have, refine the elements in your sketch or in your concepts. Right. So this is another thing. If you create something that's editable or scalable, in this case, 𝐷𝐷𝐵 that I created, I was able to create versions of it. Now, when the pandemic came, there was a bit of social distancing, so we created a version of that as well, with the masks. And of course, during Independence Day, we created a version. So easily changed when we colorize, easy to add elements or easy to extract elements without losing any of the quality. Presentation. So let's say you have all these concepts that you have, right? You assemble them. You have concept 1, 2, 3. It depends on how you agree with the client. So you have multiple concepts. One important thing for me is that so in the design thinking aspect of it, if you relate it to the design thinking aspect, it's on the test part. One important thing for me is that I write something for the client. So let's take a small booklet. This is one of the legendary designers did it also for the Next logo, so Paul Rand. So he was commissioned by Steve Jobs to create for Next, so it has $100,000 logo. He created a booklet as to why this was the rationale, why this was the typography, if it was scaled, as you can see in the lower right-hand side, to different sizes, how it works. So there's a bit of explanation there as well. So I do that across all my clients. I have these descriptions. And if you go back to my talk earlier as well, in the earlier slides, there is not a wasted element, right? Every element has its meaning, and I can explain that element in all of my works. So I show that there, I show an annotation, I show the notes there. Now, a good logo should stand by itself, right? I know it should stand by itself, it should explain itself, but it doesn't really hurt to have a bit of explanation, because that explanation, let's say, for example, what you place here, it can be something that scales it across towards different creative use as well. Like I mentioned earlier, Adidas, right? The 3 stripes. You can explain to your client the potential of the graphical element that extends. Let's say, for example, towards this, if you use this in this collateral, if you use them in merchandise and stuff like that. So yeah, presentation is an important aspect. But for me personally, other than giving this sheet, I also prefer to present face-to-face to a client. But again, as I mentioned earlier, there is no silver bullet to a client. Some clients want it differently. Some clients don't even speak to me. They just want these, they want the files and stuff like that. So we have to adjust a bit, but if I could, I guide them towards my process, right? Notable experiences. Okay. One of the most different logos that I had to design is actually for my wedding. Now, you are asking for an exercise? Try to design something for your wedding. As you can see, our logo is an owl. My wife and I love owls. And that is actually a combination of the letters of our name in the original sketch. So as you can see, this logo translates to a necklace that I had made, a silver necklace. It translated to our souvenirs. It translated to the backdrop on the stage, in any media that you see. I'm also planning to make this a tattoo, by the way. So it translates to a tattoo. It works. So that's the exercise. Try to design something for your wedding. What are the elements or what are the components that you will have, right? Souvenirs, invitations, invitation cards, social media. Right now, everybody's posting, right? Your guest list is on the social media. Stickers, if you have table elements, table stuff. So that's a good practice. It scales across different items. It scales across different collateral and so forth. And of course, it's difficult because your client is your wife. So I have to make sure that it's okay with her. Right, so I guess this is something to inspire the students. Start your design journey. This is actually my 5-year-old kid. I'm starting to draw on the tablet. So I'm exposing him towards the things that I do. Since I'm a UX UI designer, I'm exposing him to Figma. I'm exposing him to Illustrator and stuff like that. I don't force him, but he seems to have fun out of it because of the shapes and stuff like that. So for me, given that I'm in a very, very, not really a very, very field that's far off from design, I'm sort of a half and half, right? So I use it as to my advantage. So what I do is that I capitalize that I am a computer science. I know computer science, so especially when I have work involving design, I can talk to the designer, or in that case, it's mostly me, but I can talk to the developers on how they translate my designs. I can even give them some snippets of code in order to implement my design properly. But in this case, whatever you have is your leverage. As I showed earlier, right, your experiences, your hobbies, whatever you love. You can start today. Start designing, start sketching, and stuff like that. And there are also a lot of courses. So there is that you can have that schooling, actually, the formal schooling, which is the best probably approach that you have there. But there's also that everything else is online right now. If you wanted to start, you don't want to take a deep splash into it, just a dip, then take those courses online too, right? The only rule that matters, never stop learning. So if you start on it, just keep on doing it. Consistent, correct practice. So even if you wanted to go into sketching or graphic design, as most of you have expressed, draw every day, design every day. So there's this one thing that I do every day because I've already committed to my son. So it's sort of a practice that I do as well. I give him notes, let's say these notes in his baon. So in his baon, I make Super Mario characters. I have it here. So I have Toad, I have different stuff. So I consider this as a practice other than keeping him happy. So it's something that I'm forced to do, even if I'm tired, even if I can't do it, I still want to do it. It's good practice as well. So it's like a 360 project. You can do that. Just draw every day or do something towards your goal every day, right? Projects, even those you don't like, will sharpen the saw. So I have taken some projects out of necessity as well. As a freelancer, you know how hard it is. Sometimes it's not consistent. There are times when there are a lot to do, and there are times when the projects are down. So even if there are projects you don't like, just look at it in a way that you will learn something from it, right? No matter how difficult it is. And if it's especially out of your comfort zone, that's the best place to learn, or those are the best projects to learn from. Okay? And this may be difficult at the beginning, but learn to set the correct value for yourself. I guess this will come in the latter part of your career. Let's say, for example, you're already getting clients. As part of graphic design circles, some of the designers I see charge too little for the value, which in some cases pull down the whole community, right? If others can provide of this cost, so why can't you provide at this cost as well? Because I know my own value, I have my own cost, right? So it's not that low, but it's not 3 million, I guess. So depends. It depends on how you value yourself. So some designers like Paul Rand can command $100,000. So just learn to set the correct value depending on your target market, I guess. To put it simply, I know it's not that simple, but to put it simply, yeah, that way. All right, so just a bonus. I've seen some people. So I'm just flashing this quickly. What I use for vector graphics, Illustrator. For illustrations, I use Photoshop and Procreate on the iPad. For UI design, I use Figma. And for 3D things, for game development, assets, I use Blender. So Blender is free. Figma is free. Illustrator and Photoshop and Procreate are paid. Although Procreate is a one-time purchase. And I know most of you also have questions in AI, right? How it would affect the graphic designers, the art that we do. So perhaps we can tackle that later on in the Q&A. But my view on AI is like it's something that is evolving, and this is actually the worst form of AI that we will see because it will only get better and better. Think of it as a tool. I think of it as a tool to help me out, but I don't use it to create my assets. So I don't use it to generate something and then I give to my client. I use it as a starting point, very, very rarely. But it's interesting, let's say, for example, if you generate images for your stock photos for a very small part of the background, for a repeating pattern. So it's an interesting tool that makes life way easier. But of course, there are some repercussions or some things that come along with it, right? The copyrights, how it trains itself with the work of other artists and stuff like that. So I guess I will leave everyone with something very important. Whatever you do, it's from the Three Idiots movie if you've seen it. So pursue excellence and success will follow. There are some times that you might do it for the money. There are times when you would do it for the funds and whatnot. But I guess if you do something excellently, things will come. I mean, clients will come to you because of the good work that you do, of the excellent work that you do, of the word of mouth. So basically, that's what happened to me as well. It was a referral after referral, and then eventually, I was able to do it as a freelancer, just having those clients here. So just do excellent work. Everything else. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much, and I'm looking forward actually to our question and answer portion later on.
Thank you so much, Chris. And again, no, bitin, dapat whole day mag-lecture si Chris. But this is just scratching the surface, and I hope this will develop into a series. Let's see, no, how it goes. But again, I hope that with that short talk, no, you already got some very important insights. And please reserve your questions later for the open forum. Okay, so wait. Now, okay, it's time to introduce our next speaker. Okay, wait, let me just move the spotlight from Rouge. Okay, a minute. Okay, so all right, our next speaker, okay, our second speaker describes herself as a visual artist. She graduated with with degree of Bachelor of Fine Arts major in Visual Communications from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and received the Best TV Commercial Award for their grand thesis. She is passionate about advertising, graphic design, branding, and marketing communication, and has been designing and working on projects for corporate and government clients as art director and brand communicator for the past 30 years. So, mga iba sa inyo hindi pa pinapanganak 30 years ago. Okay. She was the art director of the team behind Davao City's Life is Here campaign. And she has also worked on the new branding for Davao de Oro. But aside from graphic design, she also does painting, has been joining exhibits, and has been commissioned to provide artwork for restaurants. And in 2022, she also won a sculpture design competition organized by the UP Diliman College of Engineering. Lately, Marian has also added exhibition and museum graphic systems to her list of professional creative pursuits. 45 minutes definitely not enough, but we are pleased to have her join us despite her very busy schedule. Please welcome Miss Marion Descallar. Okay. Ate Marion?
Hi. Hello. Good morning, everyone. I'm Marion Descallar. Thank you for the introduction. It's a long introduction, actually. It's a 30-year compressed into a few seconds. So thank you very much. Do I say a little bit more about myself? Or
Sure.
okay, so I finished visual communication major in advertising design at the UP Diliman way back 1992. And then I started out as a graphic designer, and then I went to Manila, got into an ad agency, but then something happened. I returned home like a homing pigeon, and then continued my career here. I was blessed enough to meet and work with Tor mentors in advertising. The one I was teamed up with in the Life is Here campaign, and another one who is into museum building. So naging wide yung aking experience from graphic design and advertising to museum and cultural work. So if I describe myself in one word, I'm a designer. I'm not really an exhibiting artist because I focused on design and art kasi and design. Exhibiting art and design kasi are entirely different. Ano yan sila? Different lives. So I focused on designing and serving the needs of a client. So, okay, how do I share my
Share screen.
Okay, share screen. Okay.
Nandiyan sa bar, Ate Mar.
Do you see it? Is it there yet?
Double click and
I don't see anything.
can you share again?
Hirap talaga ng matanda na, no? Ay, nako. New share. Okay, new share. Let me check my... I have to open my ano, di ba? My...
There.
It's
You can see it.
open. Are you
Okay,
see
you
it
can
now?
see it na. Yes.
Ay, sumamba. Hindi ko alam paano nangyari yun. Okay. But I don't see it. Ganun ba yun? I don't see it. Do you see anything?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can see it. And then,
Okay,
baka
I cannot
naka-full screen ka.
Okay, how do so I just work on my PowerPoint. Whatever I do on PowerPoint, that's it.
Yes.
Ganun ba yun? Ayan, do you see it?
Okay.
Okay. So the title of my little talk is Logomania Incorporated. Understanding the noisy world of logos and slogans. Do you see it, Jill?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. So I continue now.
Mm.
Let me begin by saying that in the beginning was the logos. It is a Greek word meaning word and reason. So if in the beginning was the logos and the never-ending logo, which means logogram and logotype or symbol and mark. Words and symbols for thousands of years, they served to identify a group, religion. Ito yung sinaserve ng mga words and symbols for the past millennia. Rituals and cosmology, or another term for spirituality. Logo since 1876 in the United States became a trademark for legal ownership. And so the branding began. So let me show you a timeline of the logo and logos and words and symbols. In the deep past, we used those things for identity and rituals. And then in the now, the industrial. In the identity and rituals, we see the Egyptian ankh and all the other stuff in Egypt, mga ancient na mga symbolisms. Even in our place here, we have the Bagobo rhombus. The rhombus is parang parang diamond. And then we also in Europe we have the English coat of arms. So imagine this in the deep past, pa-forward. This is, I think, mga 17th century. And then moving on to the industrial, the cash economy. With the Coca-Cola, I didn't write the Coca-Cola word na kasi alam niyo na yon. It's identified already. And of course, the SM sa local. So you see there, no, from the deep past to the present. But all of this are different from ours. Ours is the Pagoba rhombus. And all the other indigenous patterns that we have since 4,000 years ago. Ang difference natin is that we were not doing it for a king. We were not doing it for cash economy. But we were doing it for exchange. Exchange sa cosmology, exchange sa kapwa-tao, and exchange within ourselves, because we have this notion of keeping the equilibrium, balance, male and female bilateral society. So malalim tayo. Malalim din naman yung iba. Kaya lang sila kasi sa malayo pa lang nakikita mo, masisindak ka. Ours, we're in the scale of tiny. It was not meant to be gazed at, to be looked at, while all the rest are meant to be looked at. So ganyan tayo ka-deep. Let me move on. Continue the timeline from industrial to the digital artificial intelligence. So here we are now in the realm of the social media, where anything goes and everything is exposed. Branding is this. When a cow goes astray from the pen and goes around and somebody sees that cow, if there is a brand on that cow, which was ironed on it with a hot iron, painful siya, nakamark na yon sa kanyang skin. The person who sees that cow recognizes that this and that is the owner. So therefore, branding is about ownership. Branding begins with a logo, yung minamarka sa atin. Minamarkahan tayo araw-araw ng mga iba't ibang logos. Everywhere, in our cell phones, billboards, everywhere. Even the clothes that we wear are branded. Kahit hindi yan branded kasi ayaw mo ng branding, well, that's your brand, that's your taste. So branding begins with a logo. The act of branding begins with a logo and its slogan. So we all know what Nike is, and we all know what Just Do It is, because they were advertised, sustained advertising yan since the 70s. So imagine the amount of money they poured out just for us to recognize it and to have the feeling that we want to own those shoes. Those shoes are me and mine. Ownership. To establish ownership in a given market, to make them want you, to own you, and for you to own them requires a lot of creativity and a lot of money. Slogan is also known as tagline. Although meron silang different meanings, but just for the sake of this conversation, hindi na muna natin pupuntahan yung ano ang differences nila. Let's just agree that slogan is also a tagline. Slogan and tagline are American words, modern American words that pertain to marketing communication. It is also synonymous with end line and strap line, and these are British terms. So kung nasa Saatchi ka, Saatchi London, you will not hear the word slogan or tagline. You will hear strapline. I used to hear that a lot from my teammate kasi British ang kanyang teammate sa Life is Here because British ang kanyang training, Saatchi and Saatchi. So let us see the etymology of the word slogan. It is, I don't know how to pronounce it, but let me just read it as it is. Slogorn. It was created in early 16th century. It is combination of slog, I think that's slog, and ger. It means army and cry. So that's the slogan. O diba? Army, military, and cry. So the slogan means army plus cry. It's a military battle cry. It's a campaign. Kaya nga ad campaign. Pag may gera, di ba, campaign yan eh. When you go to war, you have to have a campaign. You do a campaign para manalo kayo. So that is the advertising campaign. What is advertising? It is a marketing tool connecting a product or service to target consumers. It is paid. Before, it was highly paid because the media were, negosyo siya eh. Hanggang ngayon pa naman negosyo pa rin. But unlike before, media was depending on what time you will show your TV commercial, may prime rates yan. Today, we have free media space, especially in the digital world. But the strength of connection depends on creativity. Anyone can do advertising, okay, pay the space, but whoever makes the most creative material or concept is the one who will make the strong connection with the audience. Ang difference ngayon is creativity. So speaking of creativity, I will show a few works from my portfolio. So my portfolio now is siguro mga 3,000 pieces, but I just picked out very few because we have a very limited time. I'll show this to you, and then after these materials, few lang naman, I will explain how they were made. Of course, most of us here are, I assume, are from Davao City. You know this, life is here. I'll just move on na, mamaya ko na-explain paano nangyari. Before Life is Here was introduced, it was October. We already had that naka-shelve na yan, naka-ready na yan, as early as July. But the August was crucial because kadayawan yon. And during that time, the mayor then, Mayor Sara Duterte, wanted to have a very good campaign to create awareness about the Kadayawan nationwide. So this was what we came up with because few months before, she punched a sheriff. So medyo negative. My teammate, si 𝐈𝐺𝐼, he promised her that, Ma'am, I will positivize the punch or the event, the sad event, the not so beautiful event. And so we were given just a few days to come up with a full campaign. Hindi lang sa Kadayawan. Kadayawan, yes, this is the one poster, but we made a lot of posters for the campaign. This is just the introductory ad. And then after that is the yung Life is Here na. So we created this, Fly to Davao and we will welcome you with a good punch. It was printed on national broadcast media, print. So nasa PhilStar, Inquirer, lahat. And then we also suggested that it be served at the entry point where the guests arrive. Siyempre sa airport yon. Sa airport lang kami naglimit, hindi na sa land. So the Davao punch was served there for all arriving guests and travelers. So when we introduced Life is Here, of course, we used an introductory ad. So that's how you introduce properly a logo or a strapline or a slogan. You put it in its proper place within the frame of a communication material called the introductory ad. In this case, ito yon. We use the cliche, the face of a, common yan diba? Common ang face ni eagle. But the headline, Our King Can Fly, was something new. It gave more life to the otherwise cliche na image. And so it was highly accepted by the media and the business people and the entire residents and visitors of Davao City, even admired by those beyond our city. Cutting to this is a logo for the CFC. It's a Christ Fellowship Church. This is the church where I went to with Jill. So I was asked to create a logo, and I came up with this because this one is an ictus, a fish, because the church is commissioned to be fishers of men. So I just played with the shape and then put the CFC right there and then a dot. I. This one is Iconograph, an exhibition of women icons of APEC. This was in 2018. 18 or 15? 18, yes. This is special to me because I worked with an international curator on this project. Besides this, I also created I was asked to create all the materials, the visual materials that were set on these boxes. if you see further, dun sa gitna, may Russian woman. She is one of those that I made a portrait of. She is half lang siya ng box. So that's how tall it is. And then it was held at PICC yata. So aside from that, I was also asked by the SITEM to create the one print ad. Hindi ko I forgot to put it here, but anyway, it's a print ad. So this is what I did for Davao de Oro. Simple lang. It's a logo type, but there is also a mark inside. The V&O is based on the unity ring, the solidarity ring of Davao de Oro. I don't know if up until now it is still the heaviest and largest ring in the Philippines, but the time that I was working on it, it was their solidarity ring that was the heaviest and largest ring down. So this is the logo and the slogan or the tagline or the strapline. Sorry. So yeah. So this was slapped onto materials that I made for them and art directed for them, and I also trained their officers handling the branding how to use it. I gave them a book, a brand book, which we used to call the brand manual, and so that's how you complete the system. Without a brand book, the logo might fly off and it might be abused or might be misused. So what shapes an ad campaign? It is shaped by, of course, a need. No, let's suppose that, for example, let's say Phoenix. I forgot to include Phoenix here. Let's say Phoenix, the station, they needed a name for their, so that's a marketing challenge. So that's where the marketing communication strategy comes from. It digs a lot of information about the industry, and most importantly, what's in the heart of the owner. Ano ba yung gusto mo, sir? Do you want wala pang branding na Phoenix that time. Would you want Phoenix, no, wala pa lang Phoenix. Would you want to be a local star or a national star, or do you want to have that international flavor? Gusto ng may-ari, I want to be a competitor of the three big petrol companies, Shell, Petron, and ano nga yung isa? Caltex. So from there, we go back to our desk and analyze everything and then come up with the marketing strategy. The marketing communication strategy will be encapsulated in one sentence, and that one sentence is a statement of market positioning. How do we want to position this company in the mind of the market? So from the marketing communication strategy, we came up with the name, and then it was approved, Phoenix, and then the day after we gave the logo and the tagline, etc. So everything is now in the advertising communication strategy, which means you cannot create advertising without a marketing communication strategy, without a positioning statement. So the advertising communication strategy, marami yan, makapal na dokumento yan, but then it is encapsulated in one piece of bond paper called the creative brief. The creative brief is labeled differently by other ad agencies, but I am used to calling it creative brief kasi sachi siya. So in the creative brief, that is the guide for the ones who will create the concepts. So you cannot create concepts without the advertising communication strategy, without giving the brief to the team. So after the concept, once approved by the client and by the creative director, it goes into execution. So this is the whole campaign. And after the execution, media planning na. I will not go into media planning na. That's a different space na. But without the media plan, it paralyzed ito lahat kasi hindi siya makikita ng tao. So who is behind the campaign? Who makes them? And why? Okay, the marketing comm strat, shorten ko na lang, is written, supposed to be, is authored by the marketing director. I am coming from the industry na talaga, from the big industry, from the big picture, from the industry in Manila. For example, P&G. Okay, the P&G has a marketing director. The marketing director directs the marketing, the positioning of the brands. And then that positioning is relayed to the advertising agency. So mag-agree sila. Ito yung problema namin, ito yung position namin that we want in the market. So the advertising agency, headed by the creative director, andyan din yung executive creative director, they will agree, okay, this is what you want. Okay, we'll come back and create the strategy. So when the strategy is created, the creative director will give the brief to the creative team. The creative team composed of the art director and the copywriter with the creative director and sometimes the ECD. So the concepts are created by the creative team. Sila yung gagawa na ngayon. The execution will be done by the producers. There's an agency producer who will farm out the production to production houses, etc. So this picture is based on most international and national brands. What are they made of? Itong mga gumagawa ng mga advertising and logos and branding, what are they made of? The marketing director, aside from being insightful and creative and knowledgeable, this is based on my observance na for the past 30 years working and observing and absorbing and being tormented by mentors. The marketing director, if he or she does not have an intuition or gut feel, hindi siya effective. Imagine Steve Jobs. Yan, intuitive yon. He feels what the market needs even before the market knows that they need it. The creative director has to have, aside from given na yung creativity, hindi siya pwedeng tawagin creative director if they are not creative. They have to possess the single-mindedness because you are directing everything eh. Hindi pwedeng biglang nalihis. Biglang, uy, iba na yung concept. The creative team has to have, well, given na ang knowledge, given na ang understanding, given na yan lahat, ang creativity, they have to have discernment, meaning they can discern what's ugly and what's beautiful. They discern what's ethical and what's not ethical. They discern what's good taste and bad taste. The producers, they have to have that loyalty to the concept. Hindi pwedeng maliwanag ang nasa storyboard tapos pipilitin, ay gusto ko madilim. Hindi ganon. So, as you can see, everyone is working towards one goal. Nobody is a star here. No one throws their weight around. No one will change the concept at the last minute just because they feel differently. Hindi ganon. Team kayo eh. Pupunta kayo ng gera eh. Diba? So may battle cry kayo tapos biglang change. Hindi pwede yon. What are they made of? Knowledge is mandatory, as I have said. Mandatory yan talaga. Given na yan. Creativity is an edge. There is an expression in the advertising that goes like this. Hindi ko kapag nasa creative department ka, ay creative ka na. So, if you are already in that space of creative people in their space, you have to push yourself to go to the edge. Sabi nga ni Sachi, go to the edge and fly with your idea. Dare ba? Risk. Take a risk. If not, how would you know that you were creative? How would you know that yung ginagawa mo is creative? How would you know if your material is creative and you possess creativity? And of course, wisdom is a must. That's the silent, nagbe-whisper sa iyo, sa yung gut and sa brain. If something is right, and if you have to restrain yourself on a project or on a design or on an artwork or on a graphic design, what do they know? Okay. They know how to compose. Layout yon, but actually composition yan. They studied perception, how to perceive things. The beauty, and kaya nga, you possess discernment if you are trained to perceive. Of course, typography is a given. In my course, I studied typography for a year. And that time, there were no computers. So lahat ay minamano-mano namin with brush or pen, whatever. And it has to be squeaky clean. So the typeface I used here is Futura. Pag gumawa ka ng Futura dun sa ad mo na 12 by 18 inches, you better be doing it right and sharp. So ganun ang training ko. Kasi old school ako, wala pang computers noon. So we were trained how to do kerning and the composition and everything about typography. Design principles, ang dami niyan. So my first day in the art and design school, bombarded ka na with principles. So you cannot count anymore how many they are. Sabi nila, ang very common is the golden ratio or the rule of thirds. But then, if you are trained so well, automatic na eh, those things are supposed to be invisible already. Kasi it's the training of your sight, the training of your mind to compose things, to arrange things. So minsan, isang tingin mo lang, alam mo na kung nasaan yung, if you want to apply the rule of thirds, you can, or depending on the elements, I may use another principle. I may use, let's say, a cute principle, ganon. So hindi lang tayo magsistick to one or two or three, marami yan. But if you are practicing it, taking knowledge, and being validated by someone higher than you in experience, that what you are doing is beautiful or right, then you are sure that you are growing. Advertising design. So in my last year, we were asked to do a thesis, a campaign. The subject was advertising design. Arts and sciences, of course, you have to have knowledge of sociology, anthropology, and anthropology, sociology, what else? Math. You need to know what's the latest in genetics, what's the latest in anything in this world, from the deep past to the near future or far future. If you have knowledge and you know how to apply it in a given design challenge, then you will be able to come up with the very good logo or slogan, or anything that you want to design. For example, I love New York. So I discussed kanina, no, what it takes, who are those who are making these logos and slogans. Here is an example, and everybody knows it. All the corners of the Philippines has copied this. I love New York. I love Mati. I love Tenongs, mga ganon. I love, but actually it was a tourism campaign of New York City. And who did that? The logo was commissioned by Milton Glaser. He's one of my favorite graphic designers. He was commissioned by the Wells, Rich and Green. Is an advertising agency. So I Love New York is a work of many people, but the logo stands out because of the genius of Milton Glaser. So be schooled, be tormented if you want to become. It's not enough, I think, for me to be, I want to be a graphic designer. I want to make a logo. That's fine. And if everyone can do that, anyone can do that. But to become one, if you really want to be serious creative in the market of ideas and designs, you would want to consider being schooled and to be after school, to be mentored by those who are really good at what they do, which you would love to become. And that is to become a graphic designer or an advertising creative. Thank you.
Ayun, thank you so much po, Ma'am Marion.
I forgot Phoenix. Nakalimutan ko yung Phoenix.
Oh, meron pa. Yung po. So ayun po, thank you po, Ma'am Marion, that the insights you shared were actually very, very good. I actually, kahit ako, like been involving in a lot of digital design then, but ang dami kong na-learn ng mga concepts ngayon na nalaman ko from you. Also at the same time from Sir Christopher as well. So before we sum it up, just a quick ano nga lang pala, quick reminder for everyone. Our chat box is actually now open for your queries for our speakers. Please paki-indicate nyo if the question, if possible, if the question is addressed to Sir Christopher or addressed to Ma'am Marion, but preferably po if you could open your camera so that we could see you, you could open your microphone. You may also do that. Just raise your hands dito sa ating Zoom meeting so that you would be recognized. So we will have some form of order for this. So just recapping, just looking back so that my points to anchor on. Sir Chris Ganiha, very, very visual ang iyang presentation. It was actually really enjoyable. Really mostly surrounds on what makes a good logo. So one of the most important key takeaway natin doon is the designing process. Na parang it's not something na parang pina-design ka ngayon tapos biglang suddenly an idea, then finally very final form and na siya na design. Yes, Ma'am Jel.
Sorry. Excited ako mag-ask ng question.
Ay, okay. So yeah, I thought you have ano po. So ganon. So on the redesigning, we have yung phases, iniisa-isa kanina ni Sir Christopher na you have to empathize, you have to define, you have to ideate, you have to prototype, and then you have to test. So yun more on kay Sir Chris, and pinaka doon is we could now start, di ba? Yun yung ano yung push ni Circus, di ba? Na everybody could do it, di ba? If we really just go through the process and to the steps. Also at the same time, kay Ma'am Marion, very amazing siya because it's more on nakafocus siya on the designing and the branding. How yung statement that really stated me na branding begins with a logo. So doon natin ngayon na-emphasize na how logos are actually very, very important. Diba? In terms of, branding. Also at the same time, logos are not just logos. Logos could sometimes be used to express statements or express positions. So, and ayun siya, ang dami pa kanina na mention niya kanina na more on, composition, perception, typography, designing principles, advertising designs, and arts and sciences. So, nakikita natin ngayon na if we're really gonna go into the world of designing, there are these things, theories, and concepts that we need to dive into. Diba? And same nito, for example, I think Sir Christopher could sympathize with this as a musician then, si Circus, na you cannot immediately play a guitar. You need to learn the principles first. I think designing is with the experiences and the lecture of our speakers ngayon, what they shared, we really need to go through this processes if we really wanted to formulate the designs. So, ayun, Sir Linus in our group chat mentioned, yun nga, correct then from the talk ni Ma'am Marion, na yun, his takeaway, sharing his takeaway na be schooled and be mentored. So we could become one. Okay, so at this moment, our floor is open for questions for our speakers. And I see, ito kanina pa naka-raise hand si ma'am, di ba? So we're going to ask Ma'am Jill first for the question, to be followed by Sir Joe Marie from UN Bansalan. Ma'am Jill?
Hello, yes. So I think the big question right now is why should or when should logos be changed? Or maybe I'll cite an example. For example, this is addressed to Ate Marion. Do you think the logo life is here, slogan life is here, and the whole branding of Davao should be changed as we usher in like a new sort of, I don't know, climate or feels ngayon sa city? Controversial question, but this is a safe space we can
Yeah.
discuss and just provide our insight. As someone who created it or behind it, do you think kailangan ng palitan, or what do you think should Davao City do to it right now? Continue or can we improve it?
Actually, when we introduced it, maraming when you introduce a campaign, it's supposed to be a campaign. But what happened was, siguro we did a lot of storyboards and print ads, which you can translate or move to digital social media. There was supposed to be a media budget, ba? So without a media budget kasi, you cannot place those materials, right? So ang nangyari, the Life is Here was naging standalone siya after the initial salvo, the launching. Parang wow, napawaw yung mga tao, and then it was for me the longest launch. But how many years? Siguro 10 years siya na yun pa rin. Pero actually, ang daming print ads eh. But some of them were printed, pero saan lang sila nilagay? In places like travel agency. So hindi talaga siya, the Davaoeños were not immersed really on in the campaign. That's why it's so sayang kasi powerful yung Life is Here eh. Ang dami namin ginawang Kaya lang, powerful din siya, that it doesn't really matter if they change the logo or not. The words kasi nasa puso na and nasa mind. Now, okay, as to the question of should it be changed or should it be, I think, well, may bias talaga ako kasi maganda talaga yun eh, yung Life is Here. It's just that it doesn't have a campaign. No one is doing a campaign with that line. So, yun lang, Life is Here. You see it in the dump truck, the garbage truck, my life is here. So, but what is it? If we do not continue to sustain, or wala na nga, ang sinusustain na lang talaga is Life is Here. But what is it? It was lost. And it is a powerful line. Sayang kasi it has the potential to change the mindset of the people if it was handled correctly. Yung hinahandle naman nila correctly. I mean, if they respect the space and all. But, the emotional side of branding, physical lang kasi nakikita natin, but the emotional side of branding, it costs a lot of effort, not just money, a lot of effort and conviction to, okay, this is what Life is Here is all about. Kasi when you do a strapline or a tagline, you have to be able to describe the brand, in this case, Davao City, in one word. And yung creative director ko, my teammate, kasi dalawa lang kami gumawa niyan, he decided, kasi nga single-minded, di ba, as I have shown kanina, he decided, okay, Davao in one word, Davao City in one word is life. So doon na kami humugot, doon pa kami mag-isip ng tagline. It wasn't like the tagline was, ay, gusto ko yung feel ko yun. Hindi, it was a creatively directed na exercise. And then yun, nag-isip kami, siya, mabilis siya talaga eh. So he came up with it. And then the moment it came out of his mouth, I took his word and placed it, tinypeset ko na siya sa ilalim ng logo. Kasi may logo na eh. Life is Here was not supposed to be the tagline or the strapline. Pinuslit namin niya. We just wanted to present something new, something else to the mayor. Kasi the following day na yung So we just wanted to have an alternative. It was not really the tagline supposed to be. Inisip lang namin siya the night before, and then the next morning we had the materials printed kasi sinep ko na siya eh. Nilagay ko na siya doon sa logo, and then the logo I slapped it on the posters. So the following day we printed it, and then afternoon we presented it. She liked it right away. She really loved it. So who would not love Life is Here? Kaya lang, but the reality is we don't see it being validated. So what I would propose to do is get some media budget and let's sit down and do this campaign again.
Right.
Ano ba talaga? Kasi yun ang hindi nagawa eh. Yun ang hindi nagawa. Yun.
Right. I think to add to that, no, I want to pick on the word being validated, because it was although kahit parang in your kwento, no, short, parang halos naging overnight, siya, di ba? Idea yung Life is Here, but it picked up. It actually really became very popular, and Davao when just immediately, just saying it, di ba? Life is here, but I also see where saan din nagkulang, no? Parang it wasn't really sustained in terms of what does it really mean. And now, 10 years after, no, we're looking at Davao City now under a new leadership, although still Duterte, but essentially a different personality with a different set of value system and a different climate nowadays in the city. So parang people are not questioning, is life still here? And I really like your idea that it's like, a good time to strengthen that brand again and validate that. So find where the emotional connection is with Life is Here. I still believe as a Davaoenyo, life is still here, but
Yes.
medyo parang nalulunod siya ngayon with bad media story, negative media reportage, diba, and all of that. And I think this is where now media education comes in also na when we know and okay when we can do critical thinking and say this is really not the entire story of Davao. Okay, kindly turn off your mics if you're not speaking po. Right. So I think also revalidation, okay, um of the slogan and the brand, okay, is really what we need. Sige. Sir Marco, there are some notes on the chat.
Yes po. Before there is a question here to address to Sir Chris. The question is, AI technology is useful in many ways. To what extent does AI technology be considered a threat for graphic designers? Sir Chris?
Okay, right. So that's a good question and very timely. I think everything revolves around AI right now. So I've worked with a lot of projects around AI, but I guess looking at it, let's say, for example, in an industry perspective, there are a lot of graphic designers in the Philippines, no question about that, right? So I have groups in Facebook, a lot of dozens of members and stuff like that. AI becomes a threat because some of those may lose their jobs. Like illustration, right? Why pay somebody this amount and then they spend this long if we can generate an AI image in a couple of seconds? I've done it in Midjourney. I've done it in a couple of again, I say I don't give it to clients, but just to try it out. There's so much technology there. But I think the key thing is, I think Miss Marian has also touched it, is that you have to be creative. So you have to have that. I think there's a. Okay.
Yeah. Pero feeling ko sa sarili niya yun. Kasi
Okay. I can hear background.
na yung mga requirements nila after ng training na may MNE pa. So, nakita niya na kagad yung sarili niya doon. Pero mukhang interested din siya. And at the same time, baka pwede natin pakiusap na ibigay niyang tulong doon sa training sa mga Iloilo teachers. Kahit hindi nila sakop. Ang problema kasi kung hindi sakop,
Somebody has to mute their ano.
Ma'am Jill, we can hear your ano.
Oh, okay. it's fine.
Sorry.
Okay, yeah, so AI becomes a threat if it takes your job, for example, like that. You have to rise above the rest. I think you have to differentiate yourself, right? So in my case, the X factor for me is I can do technology and I can do art at the same time and design at the same time. So you have to have that X factor, I guess, in a sense, and do not be afraid of technology. There are so many artists out there who are afraid of AI and stuff. It is the advent of something big, right? Having to create all these events, actors, right? They're afraid of it because you can create a likeness of an image. If you watch Black Mirror, Joanne is Awful has become a reality that you can create a likeness of an actor and then use it for something else. But for me, use it to your advantage, use it as leverage, right? But again, it is a threat. If that's all that you do for the illustration and stuff, you can get replaced. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you for that, Sir Chris. Any opinions on that or add-ons, Ma'am Marian?
About AI.
Yeah, it being a threat.
Okay, it's interesting because talagang with AI, it's a tool eh. But just like any other design efforts, you need data, diba? For example, we would not have created the Phoenix kung wala naman kaming hinugot, kung hindi namin hinugot session yung owner. I call it the hugot session. Naging trademark expression ko na siya when I do hugot session muna, importante. So, sino bang hinuhugot ng AI? It's the data mined somebody. Forced for that space wherein the AI assumes or in algorithm niya na lahat. So, well, for me, hindi pa ako threatened ng AI kasi hindi ko naman client ng mundo eh. I have a few clients with whom I can live okay in this life. But if, for example, I lose my clients because of the AI, well, I'm confident kasi that the AI has no insight eh. Wala siya, ang insight niya nanggagaling lang naman sa data that is given. it's somebody, a human being is still putting the data inside that machine. Tapos i-algorithm mathematically, ganun. For me kasi, like for now, if you look at the advertising, the branding, napaka-short-lived na mga brands. Because why? Hindi na siya thematic eh. Hindi na siya yung, the traditionally we do, for example, Life is Here, thematic siya. And then you have materials below the line. Yung thematic is imagine a line. The thematic is, for example, Life is Here, it was broadcast nationwide, ganyan. That's thematic. Kasi mass broadcast siya. Below the line, you have materials like social media, influencer, whatever, endorse, ganyan. They are targeting specific audiences. So above the line is wide audience. The below the line, yung mga influencers, yung mga yan, post, social media, these are now what you call the below the line materials. In the traditional way of doing it, ito yung mga flyers, mga events, and all. But pagdating ng digital age, nagkaroon kasi ng new medium, which is ito, digital, and very powerful. So, ang nangyayari sa mga brands, short-lived sila. So, lalabanan ngayon. When you hire an influencer, your brand is dependent on the reputation of that influencer. If yung influencer biglang nagloko, so ano mangyayari sa brand mo? Di ba? Or minsan hindi the thematic the positioning is not strong enough na hindi na siya, I mean, for me kasi when you do marketing, it has to be brilliantly made that the product is practically selling itself. If you can do it without an endorser, influencer, talagang brilliant yan. But everybody is into the influencer kasi lahat nasa Instagram, all the Chanel and everything, nakikipag-collab, ganyan, partnership. But these are not long-term. Kaya nga yung mga traditional advertising strategy thinkers in the 70s, 60s, and 80s, hinahire pa rin sila secretly eh. Hinahire sila secretly. And I'm lucky enough to belong in that generation bago mag-digitize. So, I am in a position where I'm not really threatened about it because I know some things will not last. But I am fearful because when everyone can do it, when everyone is a graphic designer, then no one is a graphic designer. Yun lang ang pinaka-fear dyan. Wala. So if you have a product, you do the branding, it will become more costly to you. At saka, if you want to bring down the cost, you have to strategize how to do it. But then, who laughs all the way to the bank? Sino ba yun? Eh di the one who controls the medium. Yun. So where is our power? Diba? So yan, as we can stop using Facebook if we want to, if we really want to make changes. But bottom line is mindset. So AI, kaya nga ako, I really go for, if I have a friend who asked me, my son can do this and do that. He wants to be a graphic designer. What would you recommend? I would always say, you take him to a good school that teaches graphic design with good teachers from the industry. Aanhin mo yung may MA, hindi naman siya nakahinga sa ad agency, di ba? Kunyari, ayun ang teacher niya, masyadong academic. May masters pero walang practical work. So may mga schools, mostly in Manila, because the industry is really there and the competition for bright ideas is really there. So if you want to be really good in what you want to do in life, for example, as an art director or graphic designer, punta ka doon. Yung AI, ano pa siya for me, pag walang wisdom, hindi ka naman ini-interview ng AI eh. So, ang AI is only limited to the data given to it. So, yun na. I hope I'm making sense. Yun. Huwag
Okay.
masyado aral na lang, mag-aral na lang para mawala yung fear. Empower yourself with knowledge and experience. And be tormented by a tormentor. Yan ang maganda dyan.
I like that, Ma'am Marian. Thank you for that po. Before we proceed to Sir Jo Marie from UN Bansalan, there's an insight here by Ange. She said, true, AI and robots can see misalignment no matter how minute, but judgment and decision making is still the work of humans. Humans have guts and instincts and are sensitive to the human needs. So I think this goes so much when you create logos, you consider human perspectives and follow your instincts too. These are where AI becomes limited. So I think that totally encapsulates the response of Ma'am Marian and Sir Christopher. So up next, we're going to go to Jo Marie from UN Bansalan. Sir?
Lolo. Okay. So, pasensya, medyo hindi makita yung face ko kasi hindi yung windscreen hindi supported sa cam ko. See, I am very delighted na I have learned a lot from Ma'am Marion and Sir Christopher. And I have a question to Sir Chris. As myself, a recreational graphic designer, I'm not actually good at sketches. I'm not good in drawing or such things like that. But I don't know if you consider this or this may be controversial, but there is a style that I do to create things like logos. Like you look up in the internet and find stock images, clip arts that are free to use. And can it also benefit your logo if you only use elements coming from the internet just to create a logo? I know this is a way of copywriting, but it helps. But we only just refine the shapes, add, subtract, or either change the things, or change it, mix it until we are satisfied of its outcome. Does it count as a way to improve your logo journey? Or with this style am I doing, am I counted as a designer myself in this way? Or am I considered as one? Medyo may existential crisis talaga ganyan. Yan po ang question ko.
Okay, yeah. Well, in terms of a designer, yes, you do design. But the thing is, if you use stock things like these, if you look at it at a certain perspective, number one, if you have seen it on the internet and it's stock, most likely everyone else would have been using it. So the uniqueness or the creativity factor is not there anymore because it's not going to be a 1 in a million, right? You're not going to make the next swoosh or not going to make the next Apple because those things, they really thought about it. There's that process and then the design process, right? It's unique. So that's a thing that you have to look out for. Number two, of course, the lawsuits and stuff like that. If you're using copyrighted material, there's the copyright thing as well. So it can be something that can guide you. Let's say, for example, if you want to take a dip, right? It's a guiding element. Okay, this can be used because when I started off, I was looking at those things for inspiration. Like most artists, you will be looking at things for inspiration, right? But don't make it as your main thing or as a crutch to do that. Now, you said that you were not good at sketching, you're not good at that. The sketches are just a guide, right? It's the first step of my process to do that. Just keep on practicing, you will get better at it. But the thing is, I want to leave is that you have to create something unique, something that you remember. And then, of course, if you use stock, there will be times that you might embody what the client, let's say the values, the core mission, the vision, right? The information that, let's say, for example, in those empathy sessions or in this discovery meetings. But then again, it's going to be very common and it might not make the client stand out as well. So if the client looks good, you will look good, right? If the client does not stand out, then it just goes to show that the work that you've done. So yeah, those are the dangers of that.
Thank you for the question, sir. Thank you so much.
All right, no problem.
Thank you, Sir Chris and Sir Jo Marie. Up next, we have Sir Mark from Media Educators Mindanao. Sir, you're acknowledged.
Thank you, Sir McCoy. Good morning, everyone. Sir Chris and Ma'am Marion, thank you so much for this session. Anyway, I am interested to the discussion of Mr. Chris, since you mentioned about the testing of the design. So I'd like to ask, do you conduct retesting of your logos? Like, do you include or consider the feedback of your target audience in the designing process?
Yeah, so okay. Oh, sorry. Was that the question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. All right. So in terms of the testing process, what I showed there was that that was the framework I heavily used for UX and UI design. That's when you could heavily get the feedback of the audiences and stuff like that. But mostly for me, I think Miss Marian may have a different perspective. But for me, I just go to the stakeholders, the one who know the company inside out, the one who knows the heart of the company, and who I need to embody. So let's say, for example, if I was talking to Steve, or if I was talking to whoever is that want the company represented, whoever understands the company most for me would be the best person to go through that in that sense. Because if you look at this as a very, very high level example, right? Somebody releases the PAGCOR logo. There are so many opinions across, right? And even when I released mine and it became viral, there were 30,000 different reactions to it, right? So each one will have their own idea. Each one will have their own thoughts. You have to expect that also, as for those creating, designing, and starting. That's also one thing, failure. You have to learn how to accept that, because not everyone will have the same opinion, right? What's nice for one person may work differently for another person. So each one will have their own thoughts. And again, if you go back to the thought, which embodies the company the most? Whoever understands it, what embodies the company the most, what's the mission, vision, the core thing that you want, or the emotion that you want to evoke from the user or from who's watching it. Who knows it best? That's who I go to. It's mostly the main stakeholders of that. But again, in terms of testing, if you go to UX, UI, that's a different story, right? You have your target audience, you have whoever is going to use your app, their pain points, and so you have that interview before, and they have that interview after it worked. Then you go back to the drawing board, the cycle repeats. That's it.
Thank you, Sir Chris, for that one. I hope na satisfy naman, Sir Mark. Okay po, sige. With that one, let's proceed to Sir Joseph from RMMC. Sir Joseph.
Hello, sir. Thank you so much. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. My question is for Sir Chris. Since I'm in the media as well, I'm a broadcaster and a instructor of communication arts, and I'm also doing some graphics. I'm so talaga, I want to really understand what's going on with PAGCOR logo. Saka hindi pa ako makamove on talaga. I'm sorry, but I'm just trying to understand paano siya naging over 3 million. But were there any my first questions are actually, I have 2 questions. Actually 3 talaga, pero dalawa lang sana ako tatanong ko. Were there any potential, sir, of challenges or pitfalls in the design of the new PAGCOR logo that you could that you could think na parang there's an impact with its overall effectiveness, lalong-lalo na that they are part of the the public agency?
Okay, so the pitfalls of the redesign. The pitfalls of the redesign is that, number one, they were using the people's money. I think this is the main thing, right? Again, you brought it up.
Yeah.
3 million is 3 million. So whatever you do, people will really flesh it out yung ginawa, right? So believe me, you and me both, I'm trying to also understand the rationale behind it. Of course, it was in the rationale na it's the flame, the passion, and stuff like that. And designers will interpret that differently. I respect that designer has his own way of interpreting it and stuff like that. But I guess the biggest pitfall was putting it under the funds. Of course, people will see, is this worth it? Is this worth it? That's a very hard question to answer, right? If everybody had the same perception that it was really nice and worth 3 million, that could have not been a problem. So there was no problem, I guess. But I guess because of that, if you look at it in the scale of things, I guess the majority didn't like it. So that's really one pitfall. And number 2, I guess I could think is that it's a classic logo, right? Everybody knows the PAGCOR. The hand, and stuff like that, the things that they do to help, the charities that they do, the colors, the green, and then the star, or the sun. So I think that's a problem. If you try to redesign a classic logo, you will have a lot of opinions against it, right? As Ms. Marian's mentioned, if you try to redesign the I Love New York logo, so what happens, right? People will ask why. If this goes back to a question earlier, when is the need to change a logo, right? So I mentioned earlier, Google as a technology company, they had a concept where one of the O's was magnifying glass because it signifies search. They had to change that. They had to change it to a simpler font that didn't have that icon because they were going away, not only in search, but they had a lot of products, right? So that's also one thing. If it doesn't represent your core anymore and it speaks differently, then that's when you can change. That's when it makes sense to change. But again, you know why people change it? There are a lot of things. It's a political motivation. That's a big one, right? You want to dissociate itself from the older ones, or do you want to do something, let's say, for example, get closer to somebody in power by redesigning this and then, having that branding specifically. There are a lot of things like cultural, political, economic, why you want to change. But yeah, so I hope that answers.
Thank you, sir. So pahabol ako isang last question na lang. I don't know if based kasi sa nababasa ko sa comments na parang may final say, kumbaga yung final say talaga is yung pinaka big boss, no? Yun naman talaga pinaka final approval. Sa opinion mo, sir, do you still parang kahit hindi siya parang hindi mo gusto yung final say pero for the sake that you are paid, parang okay na lang sa iyo yun yung gusto nilang mangyari kahit hindi mo naman talaga gusto?
If you look at it, you say yes to the one giving you money. I mean, no. I mean, this is what I usually do. I'm not only in logo, but in also design as well, right? Okay, fine. I say my piece. I say what the potential is. I say my rationale, why I did it this way. Okay, so now, of course, we can't avoid that hierarchy. There has to be someone approving it. Otherwise, release funds more, release payment more, and stuff like that. He will have the final say. There can be two sides to that. He may know what's best for the company. He may be the visionary CEO, or he may be somebody else who sees something that you don't see. So in that case, if that happens, you also have to open up and try to understand why. But the main thing is, as long as you say your piece, as long as you defend what you have created, sometimes I get into fights. Diba? There's sometimes that I push things, of course, not really harshly na you do something na sa client mo, diba? Of course, it's biting the hand that feeds you. Pero it's something that I really want to push myself because there are some people, there's no silver bullet. There are some people na, sige, let's pause for a while, let's talk again tomorrow, and then later on when they come back, they realize, yeah, oh man, no, you're right. There are some people like that. There are some people who see it at an instant, or some people who may think, or it may be on your end again, on my end. Oh nga, no? And then I go back the next day and say, you're right. Perhaps we can meet somewhere in between, right? And so there is that sort of human connection as well that you can discount. I'm not right all the time. The client is not right all the time, or both of you are wrong, then that's the worst case scenario. Pero I guess in that case, yes, you have to listen and empathize.
Thank you so much, Sir Chris. Thank you.
No problem.
Can I add something? Can I share something interesting? Kasi yeah, in my life in my many lives, yun nga, gumawa din ako ng diba? Part of my portfolio is the logo. So I already did 3 Kadayawan logos. Kasi matanda na nga ako, diba? So, anyway, yung pangalawa, interesting kasi yun yung time ng punch, and then I showed you the double punch ad kanina. Yung logo ng Kadayawan doon, we made a radical change from yung swirly na ganyan, yung Kadayawan na ganyan, because the client, si Mayor, she wanted to see another approach. And it reflected, what we did was Kadayawan lang, tapos may eagle sa letter Y yata yung Kadayawan, ganon. Tapos sa baba niya was, I think it was the Festival of Festivals or the King of Festivals. So anyway, ang nangyari, we submitted, I think 3 or 4 design studies. That Kadayawan na medyo corporate talaga was the one she chose. Okay. So ang nangyari, when it was introduced, may nag-react. And then yung nag-react, dumami sila. As in parang pag-core, pero citywide. So and then, yung time na yun, alingugmog na yung alingugmogan na si Mayor kasi ang daming complaints, ganyan-ganyan. But she was loyal to her decision na ito ang direction. In a way, we felt that we had a teammate in her. Kahit na nagagalit na yung mga tao, she did not change it because meron nga siyang objectives. And those objectives, di ba, you cannot form an advertising objective kung wala kang marketing objective and strategy and all. Lahat yan huhugutin mo sa kliyente. So, that controversial Kadayawan logo was talagang, ay, naku, ngayon lang ako na ganito sa buwan. But it was a good experience. Why? Because when we released the Double Punch ad, we still use that Kadayawan logo. We put it in its proper place in the poster, in the print ad. Alam niyo, walang nakanotice. Alam ng tao, okay, Kadayawan, but nobody bashed it anymore. Kasi nga maganda yung message. So, my point is, yung PAGCOR kasi, and PAGCOR and Philippine National Games, ano ba yun? At saka yung Batang Pinoy, the mistake is always, when you introduce a logo, you introduce it in such a way na may kasama siyang material wherein it is executed, where people will see its proper place. And it's not a poster. A logo is not a poster that you look at and criticize and try to get the message. It has to be that message. No, hindi yan. Look at McDonald's, the arches. Hindi naman yan mukhang hamburger, di ba? But why do we think it's a hamburger? It's because of advertising. It was a symbol that identifies the ad. So gagawa ka ng print ad. Burger, blah, 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 language ng ano yan, language and colors and the color treatment and the language of McDonald's. Tapos sa lower right, yung arches and then love ko to. So you know that the whole thing is, the identity of that message. Sino nagsasabi niyan? Consistent siya, McDonald's, consistent siya sa message na love ko to. So that is the function of the logo. Yung PAGCOR kasi, kaya naman siya talagang, binalat-balatan ng mga tao because it was shown as is. It was para bang, God, icon, God. Before it becomes an icon, it has to function in the marketing communication. Ano ba talaga yung logo? Is it a God? Davao has no permanent logo, but the life is here. When you say life is here, parang Nike, just do it. Pwede mo nang hindi ilagay yung Nike na logo, di ba? You just say, just do it, that's it. It's the same with life is here. Pero yung mga ganyan, dapat talagang, dapat ina-educate din kasi yung mga clients who really push, making the logo big and all. So, although yung PAGCOR, kung maganda lang ang pagka-launch sa kanya, meaning in a campaign, then people would have understood the whys and hows and whats of it. Pero hindi walang campaign So meaningless siya sa tao. Kinumpare siya sa old. Kasi walang the old and the new. The old and the new. There was no narrative in between. You can just second guess, kasi si BBM gusto niya baguhin lahat with his colors. Naging ganon. So, pag ganyan kasi, tapos pipiliin mo, hindi naman masyadong, hindi mo ipapapitch if you don't invite the brilliant to pitch for the design. Then, sayang yung 3 million. Somebody would have, another thing is that the 3 million or the 50 million, it should be defined. Ano ba yan? Is it just the logo or ang alam ko kasi, ang logo may system, may brand manual and everything. May kasama pa yung mga applications and all. And may kasama pa siya media budget. What do they do with the media budget? The media budget was supposed to buy the space so that people will understand what it is all about. Pero wala we don't see those things. We don't see the story. We don't see an ad. We don't see anything. So, the 3 million is really parang dawat limpyo gid siya because there's nothing, no story at all. Diba? Okay naman, kahit na mukha siyang sanggot, na mas maganda man ang sanggot, pero kung meron lang talagang, you know, for example, Wow Philippines, when we change to It's More Fun, merong ano yan eh, may storyline siya eh. Inaabangan ng mga tao, paganda ng paganda. So yung PAGCOR, well, wala siyang story talaga. Kaya yung mga tao, no, you cannot fool people anymore. Marunong na ang tao mag-discern ng what's a good story and who is lying. So yun lang po. Anyway, dagdag ko lang. Then the following kadayawan, ginamit yung one of the rejects na sinubmit ko. It was used the following year. Ayun lang. Ganun lang ang buhay.
Okay, sige. Thank you for that, for your insights, Marion. Actually, ano na po siguro, I quickly lang na i-ask ko kasi we've been talking about PAGCOR, either Sir Christopher or Marion ito. What's your opinion on the Love Philippines? Kasi PAGCOR yung mostly pinag-uusapan natin the rebranding from It's More Fun in the Philippines to Love Philippines.
Would you like to go first, Miss Marian?
Ako ba? Oh, sige.
I'll go
okay,
next.
Love Philippines. Well, the first time I saw it, ayan na naman tayo. Ipapakita ang logo as if it's a poster. You know, if they only hired back si David Guerrero and his team, it would have been way, way better. Kunyari, ayaw ni the ultimate client mo dyan is the president eh. Kasi he's the one who wants, who loves the notion of love. I am assuming he loves the love. Mahalin natin ang Pilipinas. Diba ganun? Unity. Unity, hindi mo ma-achieve ang unity kung walang love. So, he wanted to position Philippines in the mind of the world market in one brand, one word as love. Ang dati kasi fun. But you know, for me, the love in the fun is there. Yun eh. So, the Love Philippines, parang how can you say it better than I Love New York? Diba? Naging literal tayo as in word talaga ang nilagay. Parang for me, it's too hard sell. And too decorative. I don't see the design there. Hindi ko makita as a designer, medyo logo pa talaga siya. So if you want your logo to be dynamic in this age, there's a classy style to it. This one kasi parang alam mo yun, mas maganda personal opinion, mas maganda pa yung jeepney kasi naka-arrange na ganyan at alam mo saan papunta, saan ganyan, alam mo kung ano yung jeepney. This one kasi parang parang pilit siya talaga. And then, so, for example, if I am Davao City and I want to adopt that Davao region, you mean to say I have to change all the icons inside the love and then inside the LOVE? Parang, ang hirap, di ba? Kasi you need to be consistent eh. Ginawa nilang ganon. Sisilipin mo, baguhin natin to kasi lagyan natin mga, and then you run out of ideas and those. So mag-grab ka na lang ng gagrab ka na lang ng graphics sa internet and put it there. So for me, sa usage niya, it's not practical. The message is, I still love the fun. And how can you be more creative than I Love New York? Well, that's just me as a designer. May bias lang ako sa ganun.
There are
I guess,
questions
yeah.
in the yes, sir, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I guess, in terms of Love the Philippines. Yeah, I guess it's a hard push to it, but there could have been. I think what botched it as well was the video that came with it. Diba? There was a bit of controversy there na it was a stock footage na ginamit and then stuff like that. You know what would have been nice? with the advent of social media ngayon and everybody's posting, you gather all those homemade videos and make that as a montage, di ba? Have you seen, if you are familiar with the work of Casey Neistat, he's a blogger in New York. So that the way he does it, he did a shoot for Nike. It was so raw na he was only the one handling the cam. So just do it. Why don't you do that, right? Somebody, like all these foreigners coming here, woo, Boracay, I love the Philippines, and cut to a next one to a local, speaking a local dialect and then having fun and stuff like that. You know what? That could have been masked, yung controversy na yun, if it was launched strongly. Again, the message should always come with it.
Thank you, Sir Chris, for that
Agree.
one. There is a question in the message box from Isa from UN Mindanao. The question of Mamiza is, as teachers, how can we ensure or advocate for the ethical use of AI tools in students' artistic outputs? For example, in creating movies, posters, logos, scripts, etc. So either could answer, Ma'am Marion or Sir Chris.
Yeah. I guess what happened, I think it was UP, right, who are starting to make a handbook with the ethical use of AI, right? So it has to be defined. Number one, are you stepping on the toes of others in terms of copyright? Are you using their artwork without permission and stuff like that? It may be trained AI as a database, but you are still using the imagery of some artists. So I think the boundaries have to be set. Everybody has to agree on it. It's a difficult thing. It's not even only just the university, right? It has to be a a national thing that everybody would agree on some things. So I guess it's difficult unless they all sit down and do think about that. Is this image not allowed? Is purely generating collateral not allowed? Let's say, for example, you set the poster and then you churn it out, change the text, and that's it. Would it be allowed that it's just a complementary thing, just supporting elements, just the background and stuff like that? So I guess those things, right? So to consider, again, there has to be that human check on it, and everybody has to agree on how it is used. Yeah.
Me? Well, because I was trained in the old school way where there was no computer. So I know the process. I actually tried it the first time. Hindi ako teacher eh. So, and for me, teaching is the world's most difficult job. For me, hirap siya. But when I was asked years ago to teach art daw sa preschool kids, preschool, kinder, and grade 1, pinilit ako ng friend ko na teacher. So, okay, sabi ko, hindi ako marunong mag-teach. I said, I'll try. So, okay, what I did was, nakita ko na kaagad eh, whether bata ka or ano, may tendency ka talaga na cliche ang isipin mo or kokopyahin, mag-iisip ganyan. So, I forced these students to think creatively. So, alam mo, talagang humiga sila. Sige, do what you want. Humiga kayo. But I treated it like a creative session. I put on the hat of a creative director. I actually taught them how to conceptualize. So, ayun, na-enjoy nila. Pero sabi honest ng bata, teacher, kahirap. Ang hirap naman. Sabi ko, oops, don't draw anything on the paper. You have to write first your idea. Okay? You have to write it muna. Diba? Logos muna. Bago mag-logo. Parang ganun ba? So, matagal siguro 1 hour, tapos napagod na sila, talagang feeling nila na torture sila, kasi kung other teachers kasi paint na sila, ganyan, wow, praise, pero they never got that from me, kasi nga, I believe that they are creative. So, it was a test for me, paano ko kaya to paisipin, and then at the end of, let's say, mga more than an hour, nagpapa-approve na sila ng idea sa akin, teacher, ito yung ko, kasi this one, nagra-rationalize na, nagra-rason depth na sila, nagbibigay na ng rational, sinasabi nila, kasi ganito, yung isa 4 years old pa yun, or 5 years old. So, I clap na good job, and then, okay, you draw your whatever, your concept. I introduced to them the concept of concept and idea. Magkaiba kasi yung concept and idea. So, medyo nahirapan sila, pero O sige, stick muna tayo. Okay, sige, idea muna or whatever. I forgot what it was. Pero they ended with paper, simple paper, and then they just drew something there na single-minded, iconic. Kasi guhit ng bata, tapos he applied freedom sa limitations niya. Ganon. So when they saw what they did, parang na-happy sila, na-surprise sila na, oh, I did that. So, ang nangyari, if display ko sa wall, hindi siya the typical things that you would see in an exhibition. Painting ng bata, bahay, saan gano'n, painting. Hindi siya ganon. Iba itong nangyari dito. Iba yun. So, na-happy ako kasi at least na-exercise nila yung brain nila. So, I think if I were a teacher in an adult class, let's say SHS or college, mahuhuli ko eh. Kunyari, kasi ganito yon. Iba ang conceptual, iba ang execution. Those who think executionally are those who are the first ones to grab images from Google. But those who can conceptualize are sitting there and thinking. Iba yun eh. So, those kids that I taught how to think of images and whatever, meron akong ano nun eh, may thesis ako nun, and they just, parang creative direction ba? In the beginning, they were thinking like an executional mag-isip ba? Ay, ganito yung bahay niya, ganito yung itsura niya. So, in an adult setup, kung magtuturo ako, sasabihin, I will teach them how to conceptualize. Magkaiba kasi yun. And if you look at PAG4, I don't see the concept there. I just see execution. So that is why being schooled and being tormented by mentors gives you that edge over the others. Kaya nga, not all who create logos are the same. Not all who create ads are the same. Kasi may iba talagang sobrang ibang-iba. Pero alam mo yun, ang ganda. Kasi ito lang yung secret, executional mag-isip. Pag conceptual ka mag-isip, mas maganda. Mas malalim yung execution mo. Saka ka na mag-execute, mag-concepto muna. But you cannot do the concept if you don't have the brief. And you cannot have the brief if you don't do the hugot. And you don't have the hugot if you don't know what you want. If you don't know what, yung mga whys and hows mo. So, ganun siya. Yung AI na yan, syempre, kung ako teacher, ilalagak ako siya. I will ask, bakit ganyan? Pero, okay lang sa akin, kunyari, AI niya, pero may concept siya. And then the AI that let's say, hindi naman kasi lahat ng admin or designers magaling mag-draw. So, for example, he needs a shape of the apple. Tapos, hirap na hirap siya mo. So, kukuha na lang siya. But he will only trim it to the shape of the apple. Kukunin lang niya yung shape ng apple. And then that's it. Yung shape lang ang kinuha niya. But not the concept, the context of that apple. So, yun. Context pa rin.
Okay,
Bago magbagsak mga teachers, i-contextualize mo na.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Sorry, Marco, can I add something? Kasi,
Sure.
actually, if there's so much controversy, right? Like Ms. Marian has mentioned regarding that one. But if my student, for example, if I thought that my student did something different with an AI, then I might be impressed. Let's say, for example, we're talking about Love the Philippines, right? As a technologist, I would harness the power of AI to, let's say, for example, to generate those images in between. For me, it can be dynamic even, right? Depende sa context of it. Let's say, for example, a live display or whatnot. Depending on the place, I would generate iconography based on that place, so that reduces the friction of creating graphics for those in the Love the Philippines. So many little graphics, right? So I think it all boils down again to leveraging it or how the student leverages it. We can't entirely ban them from doing that. Trust me, in a couple of years from now, AI will eat up everything. I'm not saying it will eat up our professions, it will eat up us, designers of that, but it will be everywhere, right? The voice changing right now, the image changing, the video changing. I've seen all of that, and I've worked with all of that. So we have to prepare to use them as tools. Yeah.
Okay, sige. Thank you for that, Sir Christopher and Ma'am Marion. We only have time to entertain one more question. This is just a quick question from Ma'am Ange Monsanto from USTP, but I think it's a bit hard hitting. So sa inyo na ho to. The question is, how much should a design for logos cost? Is it artistry and product of an artist skill? But how should it be rated? So, yun po. How much and how will you rate as to how much you're going to charge? Ano lang, as a general, ano lang siguro, as a general rule.
Okay, I'll go first. Kasi I can encapsulate it. Many times, hindi naman marami ang kliyente ko. I cannot serve too many clients. Mamamatay ako. I can only serve a few who are willing to pay. So when I say willing to pay, hindi cheap because hindi naman cheap yung trabaho ko. Ganun lang yun. I believe in it. So, and then I have 3 decades of experience. So far, happy naman ang clients ko. So, whenever I am asked to create a logo, sinasabi ko na is, hindi ako logo maker eh. I will help you get rich with your business. Kumbaga, it's a system. It's a communication system that you are paying me to do for you. The logo is just the obvious one kasi physical siya. But there are things na emotional behind it. And the emotional branding kasi it's not cheap. Kasi kailangan kong i-under talaga yung trillions of brain cells ko, di ba? So, yung logo kasi, it's not, yun na nga, hindi, let us, okay, ganito. I think I will, shameless prophecy lang ito. I don't think that logos will really matter as much as before now. Kasi ano na ngayon eh, puro soft na eh. Puro soft na, everyone is there. Because everything is changing. I think the context is king, still the king. So, for example, yung McDonald's na hindi naman mukhang sa hamburger, di ba? Orange, ang Nike swoosh, hindi naman mukhang sapatos yan. Pero nasa sapatos, I don't think labanan sa future, I don't think labanan ang labanan ng logo design. It's very lang eh. Physical siya eh. Ang labanan dyan yung narrative and ang power kasi nasa tao na. Nasa tao na eh. So, if your content and context will resonate with the needs of the people, then they will root for you. Kahit na ang pangit ng mo, kahit na pangit yung logo mo, it doesn't matter. But if they want the idea behind that, maganda yan sa mata nila. For example, ang SM, hindi naman talaga, di ba, ganyan lang siya, SM, or yung Kodak, 2K, tapos maganda naman siya ngayon kasi because of the thing that it represents. Like, for example, yung Twitter, naging X. Hindi naman talagang brilliant yung X, but there is an idea behind it. And people will accept that idea or not. Sa ngayon, pimapashi pa, kunyari, magre-react sa logo. Magre-react sa logo kasi yun ang pinapakita mo sa tao eh. But the tao will initially react to that. Pero, for example, pagcore of all things, yan pa ang inuna, yan pa ang pinakita, alam naman ni sugal yan, di ba? Tapos, government money, as Chris said, yes, talagang government, ano yung nasa utak ng tao? So, it's not really just the logo. Hindi lang yan eh. Although, ang comment ko, mas maganda pa ang sanggot. Kasi why? Yung sanggot kasi, ang ganda na pagka-design ng sanggot na yan eh. Yung ninuno natin, magaling sila mag-design, di ba? Pero ito, ano meaning niya? Wala siyang meaning. So, pero kung maganda yung meaning niya, people will accept it. Kaya nga, I said kanina, yung kadayawan that the people hated, it was not bashed anymore when it was used in its proper place. It was put in the proper place. Kasi kadayawan nasa mind na siya eh. Nasa mind na siya, pinalaking gano'n. So, yun. The future, the present now, yeah, okay ang logo, but then, what's important is the idea behind it. Who are the people behind it? What are the values of that it represents? Does it resonate with the people? Kasi ngayon nasa tao talaga ang power eh. May people power talaga ngayon sa digital age. But that's just my observation. Katulad yan, ibabash ka by the millions. Diba? Nag-domino effect. But I think, yun na nga, kasi it's not just the logo of PAGCOR eh. Hindi lang yun eh. It's the idea behind it. Yun, sugal. And government money. Yun lang. Yung price, oo. So the price is, when you hire, you're not just paying for the logo. You are paying for the whole system. And you're paying for the DNA, for the genes, your genes. And I make sure that your baby doesn't look like me. It looks like you. And if you think that's cheap, it's you. It's yours. In the end, I don't own it, right? I am just a tool to make your dreams come true. Thank you.
So, Chris?
In terms of the pricing, yeah, Ms. Marinas mentioned it. It's the value that you offer. If you look at the start of my slides, the logos that I create were not almost the same. They are not the same because you have to embody who you are creating it for, who the client you are creating it for. The pricing is a very hard thing to determine. When I started, I priced wrongly. And then later on, you realize that it's easier to reduce your price than to increase. But the thing is, it changes depending on the thing that I do, since I have a large scope. So what I do in UX and UI, I may do it per hour. And also in design, it's a value thing. It cannot be charged per hour, right? All the sweat, the effort, the research, the talks that you have given there. You can make a logo. Let's say, for example, for some miraculous reason, nagawa mo yung logo in 10 seconds, right? So you're just going to charge 10 seconds for it. That's not it, right? It's the value that you charge for it. So when I started again, there's also a reason why most of my clients, the heavy part of my clients are in the US, NZ, Australia, and stuff like that. And very, very small here because same as Miss Marion, it's the cost is a bit premium as well because we give you that value. It's always the value, but it all boils down to the perception of the people on you, right? The clients that you do, as I mentioned at the end part, if you strive for excellence, then do it. Then it will follow you people by word of mouth. You'd be surprised by word of mouth, especially if you get that connection from a business person, let's say, for example, who has a large network. If you get that connection, you'd be surprised by the word of mouth that goes around, right? So again, if you offer that value that your logos are not just run-of-the-mill and it's something that embodies the client, then you can command your price. But then again, I still cannot answer how you would command that price because I have my own way of doing it and I discovered it some way. But I'm pretty sure Ms. Maria will understand. You cannot just blurt out a value, di ba, na ganito na. It was hard to determine. Through the years, we got it. We got the pricing right. But yeah, it's difficult. I guess you can look at it, let's say, from a perspective as a startup. As a designer, it's easier to say, let's say, for example, if you're doing the UI work, you can look at Glassdoor, you can look at the median of how to, this is mostly for the students, right? You can look at the median of what country earns this one. And if you can match those, let's say, for example, sa US, then try that as a starting point, right? And later on, as you recognize your value, just increase and increase and increase. So that may be a good starting point for that. Because if you just start off, I've seen logos and works here that are very, very low, right? Because of the necessity. They need the work, so people would just accept it. Sa mga Facebook groups, okay, I need a logo. Dami nun. I mean, if you have it in groups, I need a logo, then people will answer dozens of answers. PM, 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 PM. I need a logo 1,000. Dami nun. PM, 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 PM. That's one danger as well because it will bring the community down. If somebody will bite it for 1,000, what value can you get? You get what you pay for, oftentimes. So that's it.
Right. So thank you. And grabe, umabot tayo ng almost 12. Di ba? Bitin, no? Sobrang bitin talaga. And just to do a quick like recap lang and to add to what was discussed. As a teacher, okay, because we are media educators of Mindanao, no. So even though you're not an actual teacher, but we are, educating, okay, our consumers, our audience when you're creating something on social media. As a teacher in the classroom, when we teach these topics, no, and we ask them to make a logo or make an artwork or a campaign, hindi mo lang yan siya basta-basta ipapagawa, no? You should journey with your learners, diba? So there is a process to it, as our speakers have said. And again, both time, if you don't know how to do it, or if you don't understand the process behind it, how can you journey with your learner? And that's why we have, activities like this in MEM, because we want our teachers to be at the forefront of, guiding these learners to become the best graphic designers in the future, to become the best artists, unlocking their potential, di ba? Differentiating nga, yung sabi na concept kanina, what is concept versus idea, yung mga ganyan. Si teacher kasi mag-explain yan, no? So si teacher walang alam, doon tayo, marami talaga tayong magiging walang alam sa labas. And that's why, before we even criticize something or we critique something online, we should know our basics, no? You cannot be judger, okay? Hindi ka pwede maging judger kung hindi mo alam yung criteria for judging, di ba? So, judger tayo lahat sa social media. So, before tayo mag-bash-bash, kailangan muna, naintindihan natin, nga, ano ba talaga, what makes. So, this is just a start, no? At least you got some important points there. And to even add to the idea of, sabi ni Sir Chris, no, AI will be normalized. Yes, talagang tanggapin natin, just as social media has been normalized. And now, nobody wants to believe legacy media anymore. Di ba, sir, ayoko na maniwala sa ABS, ayoko maniwala sa Rappler. These are traditional and legacy media companies. Nobody wants to believe traditional media anymore. People would rather believe social media, influencers, digital creators. Ganun din mangyayari with AI. Now, more people will be using AI tools, but just as we always believe here in MEM, you can say that you're a content creator, but are you a real journalist? Are you a responsible content creator? Graphic designer ka, gumagamit ka ng mga pick art, mga ganyan, kumukopya ka. But can you really say to yourself sa pinakonsesyon mo, are you an artist? No, so dito na determine natin the moral, the ethical, no, and the legal aspects of design, diba? Design is life, diba? I believe the speakers would agree to this. Design is a way of life. You design your life. Diba? The way you schedule your life, no, is also design. The way Sir Chris wanted to build his own studio so that he can be with his family, that's the design of his life right now. Ate Marion designed her craft, the way she wanted. That's a life design. We are all living in a sort of design, no? So kailangan natin maintindihan yan. So anyway, and that's it. And I hope everybody got some very wonderful insights from this webinar. And to thank our speakers, so before I forget, here is the evaluation form for today's webinar. Okay, so you can start filling it up. Okay, so that we will also know, what are your insights, and we could better improve our services here in MEM. Okay, so let's Sir Marco, sorry. Let's now read our let's award the certificates to our speakers this morning.
Okay, so thank you, Ma'am Jill. So we're going to be reading the certificate for our speakers. Certificate of Appreciation. This certificate is proudly presented to Christopher Panes for his invaluable insights, experiences, and expertise shared as resource speaker and the participants of the webinar of Logo of Slogans, Unpacking the Art, Science, and Industry Practice of Branding and Graphic Design, given this 5th of August 2023 via Zoom platform by the Media Educators of Mindanao, signed by Virgilin Palarca, Chairperson of Media Educators of Mindanao.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The same certificate would be awarded to or be given to one of our speaker, Miss Marion Descaliar also still given this 5th of August 2023 via Zoom platform by the media educators of Mindanao, signed by Virgilin Palarca, chairperson of the media educators of Mindanao. Daghang salamat, Ma'am Marion.
Thank you.
And so that ends our session this morning. I hope that you can still attend our future webinars here in MEM. And hopefully we can still invite our 2 awesome speakers in our next so ito din yung tatak ng mga magagaling na artist. They're not insecure to share. 'Di ba?
No.
Yung mga magagaling talaga hindi takot mag-share, no? They're always willing to teach
Dami pa,
and to
ang
share.
dami pa pang gusto i-share eh.
Oo nga,
Kailangan
alam ko. Kulang lang yung time. Sige lang, meron pang next time yan. And
Sige.
the members of MEM are excited. We'll be excited to have you again. So, thank you so much for attending and good morning and God bless.
Walang group screenshot.
Sige, may isa pang group photo daw. Last group photo. Go, sige. Sir Mark, last group photo daw. Wait, I'll remove the...
Alright. Sige, ma'am.
Right, okay,
Pwede
I'll remove the
mag-speech.
spot.
Mag-thank you lang ako. Thank you,
Sure.
John G, for the invitation. Thank you to media educators in Mindanao. And thank you to the hosts, si Mark. Mark. And thank
Mark
you to
and
my
Marco.
fellow speaker, si Chris. I really enjoyed this time, and of course, the audience, the participants. I hope I shared something na hindi nyo na makalimutan. And would
Of
be
course.
useful to your to your thinking.
Thank you everyone as well.
Right,
Alright.
so Sir Mark, take a picture.
Yes po. Sige. Okay. In 3, 2, 1. Another one.
Isa pa.
Another window. In 3, 2, 1. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Until the
you.
next MEM
Thank you so
webinar.
much. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Happy weekend.
Salamat.